Welcome to the Fantasy Audiobook. Pirates. Obtain the Big Mom talent at the beginning. Chapter 1. Marinefando Naval Headquarters, a place that symbolizes justice and power, is located in the center of the Great Route and is the holy place in the hearts of all navies in the world. Of course, this place is not only a military fortress, but also has many residents. Most of these people are family members of the Navy. This also causes a large number of young people with clean backgrounds to join the Navy every year. At this time, in an open space at the Naval Academy, a group of sweaty teenagers wearing sailor uniforms and a few girls were gathering together. Everyone was carrying weights and completing various training subjects there. The most outstanding one among them is a young man standing at the front of the queue. His name is Luo Shu. He is 15 years old. However, he is not a native of this world, but came from a water-blue planet. Come. That's right, it has been more than a month since he came to this world. From the initial panic and excitement to awakening Goldenfinger and joining the Navy, his mind and his own strength have undergone a profound transformation. Because the novice gift package given to him by the system was the talent of Charlotte Lingling. As we all know, in the world of One Piece, among the characters that have appeared, no one has more talent than Charlotte Lingling. This is a real monster. No matter how ugly she looks or how cruel her personality is, just think about how terrifying it is that a person who is only 5 years old has the strength to kill adult giants with bare hands. And now Luo Shu, who has already integrated that abnormal talent, has naturally become a monster in the eyes of others. He is invulnerable and powerful. He even defeated an instructor with the rank of colonel just after entering the Naval Academy and directly became a transfer student who joined the elite class taught by Zephyr, a former Navy general. This incident also caused a sensation among all the senior officials of the Navy headquarters, causing them to turn their attention to Luo Shu, especially the Marshal Sengoku of the Navy headquarters. After learning about Luo Shu's existence, the smile on his face did not go away for several days. Pass. Yes. This gave Warring States, who wanted to end the era of great pirates, hope. He did not doubt that given Luo Shu a few more years, the other party would definitely be able to grow to the highest combat power of the Navy headquarters. By then, the overall strength of the Navy will also skyrocket. Nowadays, 3 emperors rule the New World, and the red-haired pirates are unprecedentedly powerful. Not long ago, they escaped from the siege of Kizaru and several lieutenants. Although Kizaru was unable to do his job, but because of this, no one dares to underestimate the strength of the red-haired pirates. As for the Navy, it is in an extremely embarrassing situation. In addition to having reasonable control over the world, it does appear to be somewhat incompetent. Rest in place for 10 minutes. Standing on the high platform, a sturdy purple-haired old man, wearing a cloak of justice, said loudly to the students. He is known as the Black Man. Former Navy General Zephyr, now serves as he held the position of Chief Instructor of the Naval Academy, and his life was extremely brilliant. He once won the title of the youngest general, which shows how outstanding his qualifications and strength are. If his wife and children had not died tragically at the hands of pirates, this would have seriously affected his will, makes him feel disheartened, and his strength will never stop at the current level. There is even hope of catching up with Monkey D. Garp. Call. I can finally rest, I'm so tired. Yes, my whole body is weak now, and I really want to go back to the dormitory and lie on the bed to sleep. Although I am very proud to be able to join the elite class, does this intensity of training really not make people bad? Look, that guy didn't even sweat. Is this the difference between us and him? He is worthy of being able to defeat Instructor Kate. Facing such high-intensity training, he is so relaxed. It seems that he will never have a chance to surpass him in this life. Quote. All the elite class students, after hearing Zephyr's words, showed a look of relief. They sat on the ground twisted, and a few people lay directly there, and began to complain softly, but when they saw Luo Shu standing there as if nothing was wrong, they couldn't help but exclaimed in surprise. Originally, when Luo Shu suddenly became a transfer student and entered the elite class, they were more or less disdainful. They thought that he was able to defeat the instructor because the other person was careless or deliberately let loose. But after training together for a few days, their thoughts changed. This peer named Luo Shu was the undisputed number 1 in any aspect of training. As a result, these young elite class students admire him from the bottom of their hearts. It is a kind of awe that comes from the hearts of young people, without any dark factors mixed in it. System, open my panel. Standing there, Luo Shu, letting the sea breeze blow, seemed to be resting, but in fact, he was communicating with his system in his heart. Ding! The panel is opening. Host, Luo Shu. Special talents. Copper skin and iron bones, super divine power, natural overlord. Dominance. Primary overlord color. Physical skills. Beginner. Sword skills. Not beginner. Ability. None. Comprehensive strength. S. When will I still be able to receive rewards? Looking at his own panel, Luo Shu was quite happy in his heart. His starting point was so high that it shocked the past and the present. However, he was not satisfied with this. Instead, he asked the system. Ding! After the host becomes a Rear Admiral of the Navy headquarters, he will receive rewards. Soon, the system's cold prompt sounded, without any emotion in it. Rear Admiral of the Navy headquarters, as long as you graduate from the academy, it shouldn't take long to obtain this military rank. A flash of light flashed in Luo Shu's eyes. Rear Admiral of the Navy headquarters. This military rank is not high. He is not considered the backbone of the Navy. It is not difficult to be promoted exceptionally. From this, he roughly guessed the system mechanism, that is, if his military rank exceeds if it is high, you can also get better rewards at the same time. System, check Zephyr's panel for me. After suddenly feeling someone's eyes looking at him, Luo Shu turned his head, looked at him calmly, and at the same time gave instructions to the system. Ding! The other party's panel is opening. Name, Zephyr. Special talent, top arm. Strength dominance, advanced armament color, advanced wisdom color. Physical skill, top. Sword skill, advanced swordsman. Ability, none. Comprehensive strength, SSS. Zephyr's overall strength is rated as SSS, and a general level powerhouse is really terrifying. Maybe it's because his arm hasn't been cut off by Edward Wabel yet. So the strength has not declined much. Although this was not the first time Luo Shu saw Zephyr's panel, he still felt a bit shocked and couldn't help but sigh slightly in his heart. If he didn't have a system and no other golden fingers, he really wouldn't choose to join the Navy, and it is to hide in a small town and live a stable life. Because with the weak constitution of the Aqua planet, even if he is exhausted to death, he will not be able to grow into a strong man. No matter how he trains, with this compared with the local people in the world, they are like scum, and they were completely blown away. After awakening the system, his first consideration was to join the Navy. There were not so many reasons. In his words, he was not qualified to be a soldier in his previous life. As an official, he has never enjoyed it. Power is something that people yearn for. Now that the opportunity is in front of him, of course he must experience it. Luo Shu, you are so strong. I see that you continue to practice alone after training every day. Can I join you? At this time, a girl with sea blue curly hair slowly came to Luo Shu and said softly. Ain, you just need to complete the training tasks assigned by Teacher Zephyr every day. My practice is not suitable for you. Looking at Ain, who was a head shorter than himself, Luo Shu twitched the corner of his mouth vaguely, and then declined politely. He has a monster-like talent. After receiving training from Zephyr every day, a person jumps into the sea and uses pressure to practice physical skills. To use a sentence from his previous life to describe it, that is, he simply does not treat himself as a human being. If he practices with Ain, I am afraid that not only will he not be able to grow quickly, instead, it will cause him to die prematurely. As the saying goes, the size of your feet depends on the size of your shoes. Without that kind of powerful talent, you cannot support the Hell-style practice. If you force yourself to hold on, the end will definitely be very miserable. Oh, Ain nodded reluctantly, but soon, her face became very confident again. She believed that with her own efforts, she could still keep up. The monster in the elite class in front of her could, at worst, shorten her life by 2 days. Differences between people. Hello, don't bully girls if you have the guts. Don't think that just because you are powerful, you can do whatever you want. Just when Ain turned around and was about to leave, a young boy who could be described as grotesque ran over with staggering steps, pointed his finger at Luo Shu and shouted, as if he was afraid that others wouldn't hear. His name was Bins, actually. It's not that he likes Ain, but he simply feels a little unhappy with Luo Shu, because he was the most talented person when he didn't enter the elite class, but now his position is a bit awkward, so after seeing this scene, he couldn't help but jump out and want to cause trouble for Luo Shu. The worst he could do was to make his popularity in the elite class sour. Bins, it's not what you want. Who are you? Before Ain could finish her explanation, Luo Shu interrupted her directly and asked Bins with a look of contempt. Yes, this was his intention. As in the original work, there are many characters in the world of One Piece. He is one of the many people with junk devil fruit abilities, and he is quite clear about it. He sneered at the comment that there are no junk devil fruits, only incompetent people. The person in front of him, who has eaten the superhuman type, the lush fruit, he really doesn't know what the other party's use is besides greening and the like. So what if it is developed to the point of awakening? You. Binzi's face turned red, and the hand pointing at Luo Shu began to tremble. He was really angered by Luo Shu's words. If he hadn't retained some sense, he was afraid that he would attack Luo Shu with all his strength, but deep down in his heart there was a voice that kept warning him not to do anything to Luo Shu, otherwise the consequences would be serious. What are you two doing? I'm still here. Everyone, stand up immediately. Originally, the other elite class students wanted to watch the excitement, but the reality was very harsh. Zephyr walked down from the high platform with tenacious steps, and shouted loudly, but he kept facing Bins, giving it seems to me that his words were specifically addressed to the student who was the first to provoke. Yes, Teacher Zephyr, if you don't accept it, you can challenge me, but it's just a matter of life and death. If you don't have the guts, just be an ostrich for me from now on. All the elite class students first saluted Zephyr and said in unison, and then started to line up. But when Luo Shu passed by Bins, he said something coldly to him, and then stood at the front of the team, as if nothing happened. Quote. Hateful. Binzi was stunned for a moment, and then he clenched his fists, but he could only curse secretly in his heart. In the end, he did not muster up the courage to refute Luo Shu on the spot, but chose to retreat. This is the difference in strength. Strong no matter where they are, they will be respected. Even if some people have evil intentions, they will not dare to confront them head-on. You continue training, Luo Shu, come with me. Zephyr raised his eyebrows, and after issuing an order to all the students, he left Luo Shu alone. This also caused those students who continued to train to discuss in private, but as the chief instructor, he simply could not in the mood to care about this kind of thing. Teacher Zephyr. 10 minutes later, Luo Shu, who followed Zephyr to his office, felt a little uncomfortable being stared at by the other party, so he said in a calm voice. Luo Shu, what is your dream? But Zephyr didn't seem to hear the displeasure in his words. Instead, he changed the subject and asked seriously. Dream, become the Marshal of the Navy headquarters, lead the Navy, clean up all pirates in the world, and restore peace to the sea. Luo Shu was startled, and then said with a serious face. It's just that he couldn't tell the dream hidden in his heart. Could it be that he wanted to tell Zephyr that he wanted to control the Navy first, thereby overthrowing the world government and destroying it? The Celestial Dragon clan, including Yi Mu, wants to be the well-deserved king of this world. I am afraid that when he speaks out, he will scare Zephyr. No one in the entire world, including the characters buried in history, has this kind of dream. Maybe there are only a few top powerhouses who have similar ambitions. It's a very interesting dream, but it's not that simple to become the Marshal of the Navy headquarters. You can't do it just by having the strength. There are many twists and turns in it. You are not qualified to know it now. Maybe after you know it, you won't want to do it. This is the position of Marshal. After Zephyr sighed a little, he shut up in time, because Luo Shu's words brought many unbearable past events to his mind, and he almost said some things that he shouldn't have said. The Marshal of the Navy headquarters, to put it nicely, is the leader of all the Navy, but above him is not only the commander-in-chief of the entire army, but also the behemoth of the world government, plus the self-proclaimed Celestial Dragon clan. After ascending to that position, there are countless headaches every day. When you want to make a decision, you have to look forward and backward, and you have to be prepared to be rejected by the people above you. Moreover, not everyone can hold the position of Marshal of the Navy headquarters. The most important thing is that you must be loyal to the world government, obey the orders of the 5 old stars, and be loyal to the Celestial Dragons. Even if it is superficial loyalty, you must continue to act. Don't look at Akainu in the original work. The two people in the Warring States period sometimes listened to the instructions and even quarreled with the 5 old stars. However, they suffered so much behind the scenes and were exhausted every day. Their control over the Navy did not improve. It seems so solid. In the final analysis, the Navy is just a powerful force under the world government. As a person with power, it is impossible to let it escape from its control. Cough. But your last idea is very good. Pirates are the scum of this world. As the Navy, we must spare no effort to eradicate them. I see that you can no longer do that kind of ordinary training. From today on, you will train with me. I will train you into a powerful Navy. This is the training method of the 6th form of the Navy. With your current physique, you have reached the standard of training. Take it back and refer to it carefully. I will give you personal guidance later. Looking at Luo Shu, who didn't answer, Zephyr coughed lightly, then changed the subject, took out a notebook from the drawer, and handed it to Luo Shu's hand. The 6th form of the Navy is a superhuman physical skill in the Navy. Only general-level military ranks and geniuses in the academy can learn it. There is also an innate condition, that is, the practitioner's physical fitness must pass the test. Otherwise, no matter how high the cultivation talent is, he will not be able to get started. Thank you, Teacher Zephyr. After receiving the training manual for the 6th form of the Navy, Luo Shu thanked Zephyr from the bottom of his heart. Even though he had guessed before that Zephyr was going to give him a small start, he was still a little moved when it actually happened. No matter how realistic he is, it does not mean that he is a white-eyed wolf. If circumstances permit, he will find a way to repay Zephyr's professor's kindness in the future, but the premise is that it will not affect his life or interests. Originally, based on the talent you showed, this department could give you a devil fruit, but now, the Navy does not have a powerful fruit in its inventory. If you take it at will, it may limit your own development. Hearing Luo Shu's words, Zephyr nodded and felt satisfied in his heart. Only a disciple who is not frightened, arrogant or impetuous, and has a strong talent is qualified for him, the chief instructor, to be so interested in him. But at this moment, he seemed to have thought of something and suddenly spoke to Luo Shu. Devil fruit is a special product of the One Piece world. It is known as the secret treasure of the sea. Each person can only take one, and then he will become a landlubber and be cursed by the sea water. At the same time, the Sea Tower Stone has also become the nemesis of those with abilities. This kind of thing, in the world of One Piece, anyone with some knowledge knows about it. Of course, this does not include 2 aliens, namely Marshal D. Teach and one of the 4 emperors of the New World, Kaido. Therefore, some talented and powerful people will not eat devil fruits indiscriminately. This will result in not much improvement in strength, but will lower their upper limit, and then the gain will outweigh the loss. It doesn't matter, Teacher Zephyr, I don't want to become an Esper yet. Luo Shu shook his head casually. He had never expected to get any powerful devil fruit from the Navy. And most importantly, he understood the strength system of this world. No matter which route he took, the most important thing was to have strong physique and physical skills. Fundamentally. Now, with the blessing of his talent, his physique is already extremely terrifying, but he is still a novice in physical skills, so he focuses on it, and this time he can receive personal guidance from Zephyr, so the 2-color domineering, maybe he can get in touch with it in advance. Very good. You can go back and meet at my private training ground tomorrow morning. The more Zephyr looks at Luo Shu, the more satisfied he becomes. He has told the 3 generals more than once not to rely too much on devil fruit abilities, but those 3 people all think highly of themselves and do not take his words seriously at all. Although they are now, his physical skills are also very strong, but in the end he did not meet Zephyr's expectations. But the disciple in front of him is different. He has a more powerful talent than the 3 generals, but he understands the truth very well. This has to make Zephyr higher. Have a look. Yes, Teacher Zephyr. Luo Shu saluted him and quickly left the office. He couldn't wait to learn the 6th form of the Navy, this superhuman physical skill, but he didn't show it. I am still able to receive such an outstanding disciple at this age. What a blessing from God. If my son had not died young, he would have become an excellent Navy by now. After Luo Shu left, Zephyr looked through the window at the sea in the distance, murmuring in a low voice, but at the end of the sentence, the corners of his eyes gradually became moist. Buckle, buckle, Teacher Zephyr, the Warring States Marshal asked you to go to his office. At this time, a young man with silver hair holding 2 cigars in his mouth knocked on the door, walked in and said respectfully to Zephyr. He is Smoker, and now, he has done at the position of Lieutenant Commander at the Navy headquarters is about to go to Rogtown to take up a post, but he was temporarily used as a messenger by the Warring States period. I understand, you are now serving as a Lieutenant Commander in the Navy headquarters. Don't be too hot-headed when doing things outside. And most importantly, don't rely too much on your natural type smoke fruit. Zephyr woke up from his deep thoughts. When he passed by Smoker, he said softly and then left his office. He didn't have much evaluation for Smoker, a disciple, and could only give him instructions. Ichiban, as for the other party, how far he can go in the future is beyond his control. Quote. Smoker silently watched Zephyr's leaving figure. He didn't say anything more, just nodded vaguely. There was nothing he could do about it. He was in the limelight now, so he didn't listen to Zephyr's words. Until now, he has always thought about himself. He is extremely optimistic about the fruit's abilities and believes that with the natural devil fruit, he will definitely become a strong person in the future. As everyone knows, the natural system also has strengths and weaknesses. How can his fruit be compared with the devil fruits of the 3 generals? The gap is as big as the sky. I'm afraid I'll never have the chance to become a general in this life. Warring States period, what do you want from me? Zephyr ordered several instructors on the way to continue training the elite class students. He soon came to the marshal's office in the Warring States period. Then, he did not talk nonsense and went straight to the topic. It's nothing, I just want to ask Luo Shu how is his recent practice. Warring States had a bit of a smile on his face, and while stroking the braided beard on his chin, he said to Zephyr. I have decided to teach him alone from tomorrow. From the current point of view, ordinary training will have no effect on Luo Shu. Zephyr frowned. He felt that Warring States came to him not just to ask about this kind of thing, but he didn't hide anything. He just said what he had to say. Oh, I originally thought about letting you take him to visit the world and fight pirates in advance. Wouldn't this help him grow up faster? But from what you say, it won't be long before he can stand alone. Listening to Zephyr's words, Warring States suddenly became happy. Originally, he wanted Luo Shu to improve his strength in the battle, but now the plan cannot keep up with the changes. The only person who can make Zephyr say such words is the original Sand General. When the 3 of them were about to graduate, Zephyr spared time and trained with him alone for 2 years, so that the 3 of them had the same strength. With the blessing of the fruit ability, they could compete with the major generals of the headquarters and even the weaker lieutenant generals. Fighting. But now, Luo Shu is obviously more terrifying than the 3 generals when they were young. After all, he is only 15 years old, and he has a lot of advantages in terms of age. His talent is much stronger than that of the 3 generals. If I read it right, no one in our headquarters can rival him except for those with a combat power above the lieutenant general level. If nothing else happens, within a few years, his strength will definitely grow to the level of you and me. Zephyr said with a bit of pride. He was not bragging, but he was talking about the matter without adding any moisture. He was really proud of himself for having such a disciple. Bang, 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 cut. Is it as powerful as you said? Sitting on the sofa, an old man with gray hair and a burly figure said in a strange voice after swallowing the donut in his mouth. His words were full of sourness. Ah, Garp, you are an old guy. If you don't speak, no one will think you are mute. Zephyr sneered and immediately retorted. As an old friend who has worked together for decades, he naturally knew why Garp behaved like this, but if the other party dared to question his beloved disciple, then he would be the first to not promise. Snort. I want to see how strong your apprentice who boasts so much can be. Boom. After being verbally attacked by Zephyr, Garp became a little angry. He stood up from the sofa and left the marshal's office with long strides. In fact, he felt very uncomfortable now, otherwise he would not have been so unreasonable. Just a few days ago, he returned to the windmill village in the East China Sea and found that he had always wanted to train his grandson into the strongest navy, but he kept saying that he wanted to be the pirate king. This made Garp, a naval hero, so angry that he couldn't help but reward his grandson with a gift. The iron fist of love did not make him change his mind, but intensified. After he investigated the situation, he found that it was red-haired Shanks who was responsible. He was so angry that he immediately wanted to go to the New World and arrest him personally. He had red hair, but he knew that the other party had lost an arm in order to save his grandson, which made him extremely entangled. In the end, he could only return to the Navy headquarters in a depressed mood. After returning, he heard that a man had appeared in the Naval Academy. A young man with a lot of talent, now he is so unhappy under the stimulation of Zephyr. He wants to test for himself what the opponent calls him, called the monster's apprentice. That guy Garp is very mischievous, Zephyr, you'd better keep an eye on him. Seeing this, Warring States could only smile bitterly and said to Zephyr. He knew Garp's character too well. If no one stopped him, who knows what would happen. If he dares to hurt Luo Shu, I will definitely fight him to the death. Zephyr's face became ugly at this time. He said something to Warring States first and then rushed out quickly. He was a little afraid that Garp's attack was not serious or serious. If it was true, it would cause serious injuries to his disciples. He will definitely end up with Garp. Luo Shu brat, come out here, old man. Less than 2 minutes later, Garp appeared in front of the dormitory door of the elite class students. As for the training ground, he had sensed it with his sensibility and hegemony. He was very sure that there was no one he was looking for there. Monkey D. Cap, what is he doing here? Luo Shu, who was studying the 6th-style naval training manual carefully, listened to the voice that reached his ears. Even though he hadn't seen the person yet, he had already confirmed the other person's identity, which made him unable to react. While getting up and walking out, he was thinking secretly in his heart. He asked himself, in the 1 month since he came to this world, except for the instructor with the rank of colonel from the Naval Academy, and a few individual elite class students, there is no one I have offended anyone, but now Garp comes to visit, looking very angry. Boy, you are Luo Shu who is called a monster by those guys. You are pretty good looking, but I wonder how many punches you can take. Bang, bang, seeing a young man with a tall figure and a heroic face walking out of a house, with a bit of domineering look on his eyebrows, Garp was sure that the person in front of him was the Luo Shu he was looking for, so he said a bit playfully, while folding his hands together and breaking them a few times, as if he was ready to take action at any time. System, check out Garp's panel. Ding, the bread is opening. Name, Monkey D. Garp. Special talent, super boxing power. Dominance, top armament color, advanced wisdom color. Physical skill, top, sword skill, beginner, ability, none. Comprehensive strength, SSS+. Lieutenant General Garp, as a naval hero, if you wantonly attack me, a naval cadet, it will affect your image. After checking Garp's panel, Luo Shu couldn't help but twitch the corner of his mouth. This is one of the strongest people he has ever seen in this world, and he stood on the top of the list just by relying on his physical skills and domineering power. The top of the pyramid, it can be said that there is no weakness in it. No wonder the Pirate King, Gall D. Roger, who can be chased, is running around the world. The opponent is like a humanoid nuclear bomb. There is nothing you can do against him. He can't beat you if he wants to. To hold the opponent back, if Roger and others were able users, they would be killed by Garp before they could become the Pirate King, or they might be captured in the Imperial Undersea Prison. He didn't know why Garp would want to. He attacked him, and he also sincerely did not want to fight with the opponent. He would not think that he could compete with Garp with his own talent, so there was no problem in giving in a little. The most important thing in life is to be able to bend and stretch. Ha ha, I just want to conduct a special training alone for you. As for whether you agree or not, it's not a choice for you, a brat. Give me an iron fist. Garp laughed maliciously twice, and then said righteously. Then without waiting for Luo Shu to say anything else, he turned into an afterimage, rushed towards it like lightning, and even raised his hand. His fist was bigger than a sandbag. He only punched 3 points of force. In Garp's view, this was enough. With his strength, even this kind of punch was enough to defeat those who were physically weak. A big pirate in a new world with a bounty of over 100 million. You forced me to do this. It's not my fault if it's embarrassing. Drink. At this moment, Luo Shu's expression gradually turned cold. Faced with Garp's fierce advances, he could only stand up and resist. After cursing a few words in his heart, he roared, and the muscles on his body that were like a dragon instantly tightened. Swell. Boom, boom, whoosh. Just when Garp appeared in front of him, Luo Shu endured the opponent's punch on his abdomen. Instead of taking a step back, he swung his right fist and hit Garp hard on the chest, knocking it away instantly. Boom. Garp realized that he was careless. Even if he regretted it, it was too late. Even if he wanted to control his body shape, he couldn't do it. After flying upside down for more than 200 meters, he stopped. He crashed into the residence of an elite class student. Fortunately, there was no one inside now, otherwise casualties would likely have occurred. Look, it's Lieutenant General Garp. He's actually injured. Not. Did I read that right? Lieutenant General Garp was actually knocked out. Could it be that Marshal of the Warring States period did it? Well, that guy, he couldn't have done it, right? It's so terrifying. It can actually knock Lieutenant General Garp away. Am I mistaken? I must be dreaming. Just after Garp walked out of the ruins, the elite class students who were undergoing training followed the instructor and rushed over after hearing the sound, but they saw the most shocking scene in their lives. The one who was mythical Monkey D. Garp, who is also the naval hero in their minds, is now in a miserable state, wiping the blood from the corner of his mouth with one hand. Even the instructor who brought them over to check the situation was stunned. He swore that if he hadn't seen it with his own eyes, even if Zephyr told him that Luo Shu had beaten Garp away, he wouldn't have believed it. But this time the reality was in front of him, and even if he didn't want to accept it, there was no other way. Luo Shu, I really underestimate you. Wiping the blood on his hands on the torn suit, Garp walked forward with a solemn expression and said in a deep voice. He never thought that Luo Shu could resist his fist and also return it. He could fight back, and he could still remember the feeling of the huge force rushing through his body. It was really terrifying. Even he couldn't resist with his body alone, otherwise he wouldn't end up getting beaten. Vomiting blood, he now feels that all his internal organs have been injured, and several bones in his chest have been broken. Lieutenant General Garp joked, if you weren't careless, you wouldn't have been hurt by me, but having said that, the punch you gave me was still quite painful. The corners of Luo Shu's mouth raised slightly, and he did not forget to joke a few words. He pretended to be in pain and rubbed his uninjured abdomen with his hands. He still remembered that the other party had just attacked him without any reason, and he didn't care about the reason. If he hadn't been strong enough, or possessed a perverted talent, Garp's punch would have kept him lying on the bed for at least half a month, or even longer. In his previous life, he was extremely vengeful, not to mention the current him. He would definitely retaliate. If he had the chance, he would like to entertain Garp well. You, Garp, do you know what you are doing? As a vice admiral of the Navy, you attack my disciples for no reason. Where do you put the military discipline of the Navy? Hearing Luo Shu's harsh words, the outspoken Garp immediately wanted to endure the pain and teach the other party a lesson, but Zephyr appeared in front of him in an instant. Regardless of Garp's injuries, he grabbed his arm instead. Collar, yelled at it. Zephyr, you have gained a good apprentice. I hope he will really achieve the achievements you want in your heart in the future. Garp, who had regained some sense after being yelled at by Zephyr, took a deep look at Luo Shu, whispered to Zephyr, broke away from the other person's hand holding his collar, and left with staggering steps, to the Naval Academy. He knew that he was embarrassed this time, but he didn't care much. What puzzled him the most was how Luo Shu could resist his iron fist without being injured. Although he did not have the blessing of armed domineering, this time he knew how heavy the punch was, and it would be hard to describe it as breaking mountains and cracking rocks. Soon, Garp suddenly had an idea, and a tall, fat old woman with pink hair and a disgusting face appeared in his mind. Does that kid have anything to do with Charlotte Lingling? No, the Warring States period must be notified about this matter. After having this idea, Garp couldn't help but shed a few drops of cold sweat on his forehead. He had fought against Charlotte Lingling several times and knew how powerful the other party's body was. After a brief exchange, he actually felt that Luo Shu's talent was somewhat similar to that of the old woman, and there might be some unknown secret in it. It must be said that although Garp always gave people the impression of being carefree and not letting anything go, it's like that in his heart, but when he gets serious, his thinking is extremely flexible and his brain is not ordinary enough. What are you looking at? Go back to training. Looked at Garp angrily, and then Zephyr turned around, glanced at the elite class students who were still standing there, and shouted loudly with an angry face. However, despite his ugly face, he was thinking in his heart. He was happy not because Garp lost his face and was injured by his disciples, but because he underestimated Luo Shu's talent. Yes, Teacher Zephyr. The students immediately woke up from the shock, first glanced at Luo Shu with fear, then said in unison, and hurriedly left with the instructor responsible for their training. Even if this thing really happened in front of them, they also felt it was extremely unreal that the legendary Vice Admiral Garp, known as the naval hero, would be injured by his companions who lived with them day and night. This made them unable to accept it for a while. Luo Shu, are you not injured? Do you want to call the doctor to check you out? After the elite class students left, Zephyr quickly came to Luo Shu. After looking at him carefully, he asked with great concern. He didn't look like an instructor or a teacher at the moment. Instead, he showed a fatherly look. It's okay, Teacher Zephyr. It's just that Lieutenant General Garp was injured by my mistake. Will there be some trouble? Luo Shu shook his head. He was indeed not hurt at all, so he didn't want to pretend to be pitiful. Garp was a person he didn't like very much in anime in his previous life. The main reason was that he liked to mess around. Now he is a little worried about what will happen next and how far it will escalate. Don't worry, you are Zephyr's most valued disciple. No one in the Navy headquarters dares to target you. Besides, Garp is not the kind of person who likes to use tricks behind his back. Okay, go back and have a good rest. I will guide you in your practice tomorrow morning. Zephyr said quite domineeringly. He thought it was unnecessary to worry about Luo Shu, and patted his shoulder with relief. He is now considering letting Luo Shu contact him in advance, and domineering is a method that can enhance his strength. Quote. After Luo Shu thought about it carefully for a while, he felt that he had indeed thought too much. Garp would not plot against him behind his back, and after he came to this world, the system arranged a very reasonable identity for him. It can be said that there are no flaws. Even if the CP under the world government checks it, there will be no problem. Garp, what the hell are you doing? At this time, the voice of the Warring States period came from the Navy headquarters and the Marshal's office. Looking at the messy figure in front of him, there was blood on the corner of his mouth, and there was a fist mark on his chest. Anyone with some knowledge can find that there are bones there. Several of them were broken. If this kind of thing happened to a normal Navy, Sengoku wouldn't be so rude. But if it happened to his old friend Garp, Sengoku had to take it seriously. At this time, a thought appeared in his heart. The terrifying thought, could it be caused by the monster in the Naval Academy? Including the senior staff officer sitting aside, and the Navy headquarters Admiral Aokiji who took off his blindfold, everyone looked at it in shock. Looking at Garp, they even thought that Garp had just returned from the New World and was besieged by the three emperors. Warring States period, do you know the origin of that brat Luo Shu? Garp didn't explain, but asked urgently. Of course I know that his parents were both Marines, but they died in a battle with pirates, and he lived in Marinavando from the beginning. Why do you ask? Warring States was a little confused about Garp's question, but he still told what he knew. After Luo Shu joined the Navy and showed his powerful talent, this information had already appeared in his hands. After all, as the Navy's future focus on cultivating seeds, the Warring States period was very concerned about him, so he would naturally check out some of the information in front of him to avoid embarrassing things. How is it possible? If I say that kid has something to do with Charlotte Lingling, do you believe it? Garp looked surprised, and soon he shook his head. He expressed disbelief that Luo Shu's parents were Navy, so he asked again unwillingly. What are you talking about, Garp? What happened between you? After Zhongguo was stunned for a moment, he slightly raised his forehead and said helplessly. He was a little confused by Garp's words. Garp, calm down, you can tell me what happened. The crane on the side also followed up. She knew that when Garp was serious, His mind was online, so she wanted to know the basis for Garp to say such a thing. As for the green pheasant, he sat there obediently. He was also very curious about this. He had heard the name Luo Shu many times. Of course he knew that the other party was the strongest genius in the Naval Academy. Now that the other party's identity was questioned by his former teacher, he wanted to hear what Garp had to say. Call. The injuries on my body were all caused by that brat, but that's not why I questioned his identity, but because my fist hit him in the abdomen with 30% of the force, but it didn't cause any injuries and he didn't even take a step back. Instead, he punched me away, and I can be sure that he held back, otherwise in that case, I would probably die on the spot. Don't you think that strong physique and strength look very similar to Charlotte Lingling? So I think he has some kind of relationship with Charlotte Lingling. Garp took a deep breath to calm down his somewhat irritable heart. Then he talked about all his doubts. Until now, he is still convinced that there should be an undisclosed secret between Luo Shu and Charlotte Lingling. The secret of man. There was no exaggeration in his words, including the sentence that Luo Shu held back his hand when he hit him. This is the fact. If Luo Shu really hits Garp with all his strength and does not use the iron block and the armed domineering body protection, he can definitely kill him with one punch. You know, although Garp is physically strong, he can't even resist with swords and guns. Don't forget, in the original book, when he was sleeping, he was struck with a deep wound by the Axe King with an axe. With Luo Shu's magical power, it's really not too easy to kill Garp in that state. It's just that Luo Shu didn't do that. Whether it was for his future or his own interests, it was extremely unwise to kill Garp at this stage. Only a fool would do that. If something like that really happened, no matter how many reasons he had, the consequences would be unbearable for him. Hiss. Garp, you may have guessed wrong this time. Luo Shu was born in Marineland, and many Navy family members know him, so he cannot be the heir of Charlotte Lingling. In the office, after listening to Garp's narration, the three of them couldn't help but take a breath of cold air. After thinking for a moment, Warring States said very seriously. It's not that he doesn't believe his old friend, but the reality. In front of us, there is no question about Luo Shu's background. It is impossible for the other party to have seen Charlotte Lingling in person, let alone what relationship Luo Shu will have with Charlotte Lingling. Garp, you are too worried this time. Seek a doctor for treatment quickly. He was on the Warring States' side without exception. She didn't think Garp's suspicion could be established. Even if the talents were similar, it didn't mean there was any relationship between the two. The most important thing was that Luo Shu's background was too clean. No matter how much you check, it's useless. In their navy, a monster student with top talent finally appeared. It's impossible to question him just because of Garp's little analysis. Thinking about this kind of thing doesn't have any connotation. Selfishly, but from the perspective of the Navy. Even if I guess wrong, I can feel the ambition hidden deep in his heart. He feels more like a pirate to me than a navy full of justice. Mr. Garp, let me accompany you to the medical department. Seeing that no one supported his words, Garp yelled a few words with great enthusiasm. Just when he was about to slam the door and go out, Aoki stood up and left with him. It seems that Luo Shu's talent is much more terrifying than we imagined. After the two people left, he dragged his chin with one hand and said in a deep voice. I once heard the news that the top leaders of the world government had this evaluation of Charlotte Lingling when she was a child. If she joins the world government, she will become the strongest shield for the celestial dragons. If she joins the Navy, she will be enough to become a Marine in the future. Marshal. This shows how powerful that old woman's talent is. At only 5 years old, he almost destroyed the entire Elbaf. Even the adult giants are not her enemies. Now, there is a monster in our Navy who is as talented as Charlotte Lingling. Nothing can be done to let him die before he grows up. Warring States fell into deep thought for a while. When he woke up, he clenched his fists and said firmly. Luo Shu is the hope of the Navy's future, and he is extremely optimistic about him. I hope Luo Shu's child will be a blessing to our Navy. He also sighed seriously. As a member of the Navy at the same time as the Warring States period, Garp and others, she has selflessly dedicated most of her life to the Navy. She has a very strong sense of belonging to this force. Naturally, she hopes that Luo Shu can contribute to the Navy. Bring brilliance. Early the next morning, Luo Shu put on his sailor uniform and went to a special training ground. There was no one else here, and it was a private training place that belonged to Zephyr, a former Navy admiral and current chief instructor of the Naval Academy. As for what happened yesterday, although the Warring States period deliberately issued an order to prohibit publicity within the headquarters, it was of little use and was still known to most of the Navy. But some of them expressed disbelief. After all, Garp was invincible in their minds. How could he be injured by a trainee from the Naval Academy? You are here, Luo Shu. During this night, do you have any understanding of the sixth form of the Navy? After a while, Zephyr, who was wearing a purple suit, came to Luo Shu. Looking at Luo Shu, who was ready, he couldn't help but ask. The sixth form of the Navy is a superhuman physical skill in our Navy. If you want to get started, you must not only have a matching physique, but also have high requirements for your own control. At present, I have started to use iron blocks. Luo Shu thought for a moment and then replied without any concealment. He had hardly rested this night and had been studying the sixth form of the Navy. Maybe his talent was too strong. In just such a short time, he learned one of them. Good. Your talent is powerful. As long as you cooperate with hard training, your strength will definitely improve quickly. Now I will personally guide you to practice other styles. After you learn all of them, I will also teach you domineering skills. Zephyr's eyes suddenly lit up. He was still a little shocked that Luo Shu could learn the iron block in one night. However, thinking about how his disciple could withstand Garp's iron fist with his physical strength, it was easy for him to do so. He was relieved. In this way, time passed quietly, and 2 years passed in the blink of an eye. During this period, Luo Shu followed Zephyr almost every day to practice physical skills and domineering, as well as gain experience against enemies. Occasionally, he would be with Zephyr. Under the leadership of Fa, he went to sea to kill some weak pirates, thus accumulating merit. As for Garp, although he met him several times, he never spoke to him, and the other party never caused trouble to Luo Shu. Now Luo Shu is here. The Navy headquarters is very famous. Of course, this is all thanks to his strength and talent. Boom, boom, Teacher Zephyr, let's stop here today. On an island not far from Malinfando, two figures, one tall and one short, intertwined with each other. There was a violent sound when fists and feet collided. Even the entire island couldn't help but tremble, and the surrounding seawater was also shaking. They were tumbling, showing how powerful the attacks of the two were. Yes, you are indeed my most promising disciple. Now, even if you go to the New World, no one can keep you behind. But when you are outside, no matter what you do, you must be careful. This is the badge prepared for you by the Warring States period, which represents your military rank. From today on, you will be the youngest colonel in the Navy. After he stopped, Zephyr patted Luo Shu's shoulder happily, solemnly took out a badge representing the rank of colonel from his arms, and put it on his beloved disciple's shoulder with his own hands, without saying anything. I forgot to tell you. In the past 2 years, Luo Shu has been by his side. His strength, mood, and body appearance have all changed. Now that the young eagle has grown up, it is time to fly alone. Thank you, Teacher Zephyr. Luo Shu looked calm, glanced at the badge on his shoulder, saluted Zephyr, and said very seriously. Starting from tomorrow, you will patrol the first half of the Grand Line. Remember to do something to stop the mouths of some people in the headquarters. After all, you are a bit too young. Even if you are strong enough, your qualifications are too poor after all, and you can only make up for it by merit. Zephyr nodded, and while leading Luo Shu towards the shore, he said, thinking back when he was Luo Shu's age, he was just a cadet in the Navy. You have to throw it away. The current Navy is not the moment when Garp and others take a back seat in the face of the Warring States period after the war. It is impossible to do such a thing that if you have strength, you will get the corresponding military rank. Ah, don't worry, Teacher Zephyr, those fools living in the first half of the Grand Route will soon face nightmares. Luo Shu sneered and said that he had not forgotten that as long as he became a rear admiral at the Navy headquarters, he would be able to obtain rewards from the system. For him, if he wanted to be promoted, he could only accumulate merit, that is, kill or arrest pirates. The two of them walked and chatted, and soon arrived at the shore, boarded a warship docked there, and quickly sailed to the Navy headquarters. The system opens my panel. Ding. The panel is opening. Host. Luo Shu. Special talents. Copper skin and iron bones, super divine power, natural hegemony. Dominance. Intermediate overlord color, advanced armed color, intermediate knowledge color, physical skills, advanced swordsmanship, not yet started. Ability. None. Comprehensive strength. SS plus. Watching Luo Shu was very satisfied with his own panel. Although his overall strength was still not as high as SSS, there was no problem in fighting against a strong man like Zephyr. He could not be defeated in a short time. The final result was also they will just retreat, and no one can do anything to the other. This is also because his knowledge, color, and physical skills are still a little behind, otherwise his strength will be stronger. Boss Luo Shu, I knew that your military rank would soon surpass mine. At this time, a young man with brown hair, X-shaped marks on his chin and chest, and a four-edged axe and a sharp knife on his waist came to the deck and said to Luo Shu with congratulations. Drake, can you have some potential? You are just a captain at the Navy headquarters. If your vision is so narrow, your path will become difficult in the future. Luo Shu said without looking back, his eyes were staring at the sea in the distance, as if he was deep in thought. I'm just excited about following you out of the headquarters. If possible, I also want to be a lieutenant general or general. Drake scratched his head in embarrassment. He was impressed by Luo Shu's charm and strength a year ago and vowed to follow him, thus getting out of his original embarrassing situation. Now he is a lieutenant commander at the Navy headquarters. Same as Smoker, but his talent and fruit ability are obviously better than the former. In fact, half of the reason why he made this choice is that Luo Shu doesn't care about his origin at all. After all, his father is a pirate, also a traitor to the Navy, for which he has always felt shame. Don't worry, there is definitely that chance. Luo Shu slowly turned around and looked at Drake with some amusement. Although the voice coming out of his mouth was small, it was extremely firm, as if he was describing a fact. As someone who wants to dominate the Navy in the future and has lofty goals for Luo Shu, of course he needs a lot of subordinates, but he wants to take the elite route, and he doesn't look down on the existence of garbage at all. And Drake, regardless of his own talent, or his rare ancient species alien, the power of the Tron fruit is extremely outstanding. He can be sure that Drake's upper limit will be very high in the future. After all, in the anime in his previous life, the opponent's strength was very good. This time he will personally cultivate a powerful fighter force. I'm really looking forward to that day coming. But the information you asked me to inquire about before has come to fruition. That Edward Wable is now in the first half of the Grand Route. But the exact location cannot be determined. Drake smiled symbolically, and then he said a little guiltily. Very good. He is just part of the plan, it doesn't matter if we can find him or not. Let everything be arranged by fate. Luo Shu waved his hand and said, indicating that he didn't have to do this. He was indeed very interested in Edward Wable, that stupid monster. If he could subdue him, it would be a big help, but if he didn't have the chance, he would not regret it. At the same time, Garp, who was in Marineland, couldn't wait to rush to Sengoku's office after hearing that Luo Shu was promoted to captain at the Navy headquarters. Although he had not found Luo Shu in the past 2 years, it's troublesome, but it's not that he hasn't paid attention to the other party. He thinks Luo Shu was promoted too quickly and it's not suitable for his age at all. Boom. Warring states. Did you make a mistake? That kid Luo Shu was only 17 years old, so he was appointed as the captain of the Navy headquarters. Will he be given the position of general in another 2 years? After arriving at the marshal's office, Garp didn't knock on the door, let alone who was in the room. He slammed his hands on the table in front of Warring States and asked loudly while blowing his beard and staring. Luo Shu is strong enough to hold this position. Besides, he has killed many pirates in the past 2 years. Even in terms of merit, he is qualified to sit in that position. Warring States frowned. He was very dissatisfied with Garp's performance. After all, he is also the marshal of the Navy headquarters. It's okay if you don't respect him and embarrass him like this. But fortunately, the other party is Garp and he understands him character, so he still made an explanation in a deep voice. You don't know that that kid was trying to win over other geniuses at the Navy headquarters when he didn't have a military rank, right? And you are still indifferent to this. I dare to say frankly that if the Navy really falls into the hands of Luo Shu in the future, it will definitely deteriorate. The future does not exist for justice. Garp's eyes widened angrily, staring at warring states, and said word by word. He naturally knew about Drake following Luo Shu, and he also saw the other party's talent, but I can't control other people's thoughts, so I can only let warring states treat it with caution. Garp, you are so naive sometimes. Not to mention, it was Drake who took the initiative to follow Luo Shu. Even if he really recruited some geniuses to be his subordinates, there would be no problem. With his powerful talent, his position will be higher in a few years. Naturally, it will take a few years. A person with strength and brains to help him do things. Back then, who among the three of Akainu, Aokiji, and Kizaru had not tried to win over someone? And the most important thing is that I was promoted to captain of the Navy headquarters. Even the 5 old stars gave me permission and told me to make Luo Shu have a stronger sense of belonging to the Navy. Otherwise, if he becomes a pirate, he will definitely be a big deal, trouble. Warring states didn't seem to see Garp's angry look, he kept talking, and even moved out of the 5 old stars. I see, that is to say, if that brat Luo Shu has enough strength and achievements, those few people will add a 4th general to the Navy. Tisk, 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 it seems that the title that Zephyr once obtained will not be preserved for a long time. But I will keep an eye on him. If he betrays the Navy, I will personally send him to the Imperial Undersea Prison. Sure enough, after hearing that the 5 old stars were involved in this matter, Garp's face returned to its previous appearance, but he was still a little unwilling. This was also because he saw clearly Luo Shu's hidden ambition, and he didn't want to let the other party become a senior officer of the Navy, thus affecting the development of the Navy. As for the incident where he was injured by Luo Shu 2 years ago, he had already forgotten. Garp's promotion of Luo Shu was not to avenge that punch. He can achieve the position of a naval hero, but he cannot be that kind of narrow-minded person. Snort, since you have so much time to pay attention to Luo Shu, do you know that your good son Meng Chi Dilong led the revolutionary army to overthrow the regime of a country? If you have nothing to do, can you arrest him quickly? Warring states snorted heavily, and took out a document from the drawer, which contained the recent movements of the revolutionary army. He threw it on the table and yelled at Garp at the same time. Ah ha ha ha, this guy is really capable. Old man Warring States has something to do, so I'll leave first. Garp glanced at the document, and a look of pain flashed across his face. Then, he quickly changed and acted as if he didn't care. He laughed and said something to Sengoku, and rushed out in an instant. Marshal's office. The fact that his son, Monkey D. Dragon, established a revolutionary army and openly fought against the world government has always been a scar in his heart. Now that the Warring States period was mentioned, he certainly had no intention of staying any longer. But at this moment, suddenly he thought of his precious grandson Monkey D. Luffy, who was living in the windmill village in the East China Sea. Now he wanted to be the Pirate King and even talked about it. He really had no choice but to do more. He took the time to go back and give the other party a few punches of love, trying to wake him up. Coupled with the matter of the child that Gal D. Roger entrusted to him, Portgas D. Ace, this made Nyan Garp, who is already old, feels helpless. There are too many things he cares about every day. He is really tired now. Wow, Luo Shu was promoted to captain of the Navy headquarters. How is it possible? He is similar in age to us. Is the gap really so big? Why don't I have such a powerful talent? Then I can become a colonel at the Navy headquarters. When I return to my hometown, who dares to look down on me? I'm so envious. Luo Shu is so powerful that the top brass of the Navy headquarters would break the rules and promote him. It seems that his future will be bright in the future. Let me tell you, Luo Shu is already a candidate for the next admiral of the Navy headquarters. Don't forget, he defeated the instructor 2 years ago and even injured Lieutenant General Garp. I'm afraid his current strength is not that of ours. It's imaginable. I also saw that day when he was fighting against Teacher Zephyr, and he didn't lose at all. Isn't he already as strong as Teacher Zephyr? That was obviously Mr. Zephyr's deliberate attempt to let things slip, but Luo Shu's strength must be much stronger than ours, otherwise he wouldn't have been promoted to the rank of colonel at the Navy headquarters. Quote. An hour later, many naval cadets wearing sailor uniforms gathered at the port of the Navy headquarters, including members of the elite class. After all, when Zephyr, the chief instructor of the Naval Academy, returned, of course everyone had to come out to greet him. But just after they received the news that Luo Shu had obtained the rank of captain of the Navy headquarters, they started talking one after another. Many of them were envious, jealous, and even cursed secretly in their hearts. The ones with the ugliest expressions were undoubtedly the instructor with the rank of colonel who had been defeated by Luo Shu, and Binz, who had always been at odds with Luo Shu. The two of them kept roaring in their hearts at this moment, why would the sky have no eyes to give Luo Shu such a powerful talent? I am afraid that they will never be able to turn around in the future. Teacher Zephyr. After Zephyr, Luo Shu, Drake and several handymen got off the warship, the students and instructors immediately shouted in unison. Let's all go back and train on our own. Zephyr's face was a bit proud, and he waved his hand and gave instructions. In fact, deep down in his heart, he quite liked this feeling. After all, these people are all his disciples. If they are all like Huang, isn't it a joke to be like an ape? Tisk tisk, isn't this Kate? And you, by the way, answer Colonel Ben, what's your name? Just as everyone was leaving, Luo Shu and Derek slowly came to the elite class team. Then Luo Shu deliberately blocked the road and pointed playfully at the captain of the Navy headquarters whom he had defeated. Kate, and his classmate Ben said. Colonel Luo Shu, you'd better answer what Colonel Ben said, otherwise by the time you graduate, I might already be a major general or lieutenant general. Believe it or not, I will arrange for you to clean the toilet by then. Kate was very tolerant and said hello to Luo Shu with a gentle face, but Binz was still too young. Just when he was about to get angry, a thunderous sound exploded in his ears, and even his body couldn't help but tremble. That sentence makes sense when you think about it carefully. Luo Shu may not be able to do anything to him now, but that won't necessarily be the case after he graduates. He has no confidence that he can obtain a high-level military rank in a short period of time. It will definitely be repaired badly by Luo Shu by then. Call, Colonel Luo Shu. My name is Binz, please give me some advice. After thinking clearly about the pros and cons, Binz took a deep breath, forced himself to calm down, and then saluted Luo Shu. He was still lucky before, thinking that Zephyr would come forward to stop him, but obviously, he thought too much. Zephyr didn't pay attention to some of them at all. In his opinion, they were all his students, and the palms and backs of his hands were all flesh. The best way to deal with them was to pretend they didn't see them. Besides, it was also good for Binz to be exposed to the cruelty of this world in advance. It's a good thing, but he will pay a heavy price for it in the future. At least he must understand that no one can afford it. Louder, I can't hear you clearly. Luo Shu looked like he was picking his ears and told Binz again that he was just in a good mood today and wanted to tease him. Otherwise, he would not even have the intention to talk to such a small character. Report, Colonel Luo Shu. I'm Cadet Binz. Looking around, he found that the elite class students training with him had all turned their heads to other places. There was no other way. Binz could only swallow this grievance in his stomach, and at the same time paid a very special tribute to Luo Shu. Formal military salute. Very good. Remember to do this the first time you see me next time, otherwise Colonel I will make you walk around without food. After suddenly feeling a little bored, Luo Shu took Derek away, but when he passed by Binz, he didn't threaten him at all. That's right. It was a threat. He was not afraid. These rookies hated him because from the beginning to the end, he did not think that these students in the same class as him had any great potential. At most, they were just cannon fodder for a few more years. It was his purpose to draw some fun from them. Bang, bang, bang. However, Binz could only nod. Even though he wanted to be angry in his heart, he could not say the words when he came to his mouth. His fists were clenched white, but he looked so powerless. This was the suppression of power and strength, which made him unable to speak out. He wanted to straighten his back, but it was difficult to raise his head. Boss Luo Shu, do you want to find a chance to kill that kid? A few minutes later, Drake followed Luo Shu and asked in a low voice. He also made a motion of slitting his throat. The meaning was self-evident. As a gold medal fighter under Luo Shu, his loyalty is still very high. He really wants to eradicate the little bugs who secretly hate Luo Shu. It's meaningless, Drake, that kind of rubbish doesn't deserve to be remembered in our hearts. You will replace me in a while to select some elite soldiers. You don't need too many, just a few dozen are enough. These people will accompany us to the first half of the Grand Line. Luo Shu paused, shook his head slightly, and told Derek that he had already considered sailing tomorrow. As for Bin's, sorry, he had already forgotten about it, or in other words, he had never considered it. I took it to heart. Yes, Boss Luo Shu. Hearing Luo Shu's instructions, Drake immediately replied, and began to look forward to it in his heart. He has not been out of the Navy headquarters a few times, so he naturally yearns for the great route, not to mention that this voyage will accumulate a lot of money. Many achievements allowed him to be promoted quickly. If you are an official, you will not miss your official position. 10 minutes later, Luo Shu, accompanied by Drake, arrived at his new residence. The facilities here can be described as it is much more advanced than the previous dormitory. There are also several Navy handymen who are responsible for taking care of his food, clothing, housing and transportation. It is really not too enjoyable. Colonel Luo Shu, the Warring States Marshal, asked his subordinates to inform you that when you come back, go to the Marshal's office. A handyman who looked relatively young reported to Luo Shu as soon as he saw him again. In this way, Luo Shu made some repairs, cleaned up, and put on a black suit and a cloak of justice. Matching his tall and straight figure, his heroic face, and the muscles that slightly held up his shirt, plus his unique temperament made him look quite domineering. Along the way, I don't know how many Marines couldn't help but cast their eyes at him. Just like Garp or the three generals, no matter where they went, there would be a large number of Marines. Discussing in private, it is a kind of personality charm, and it also shows the awe of the weak towards the strong. As for Drake, he followed Luo Shu's instructions and went directly to the military camp to select naval soldiers without following him. Beside, Buckle, come in. Marshal of the Warring States. Lieutenant General Crane knocked on the door of the Marshal's office. After hearing the words coming from inside, Luo Shu pushed the door open and said hello to Warring States, who was sitting in the main seat and he who was standing beside him. Chapter 11. This is the second time we have met. It seems that your strength has improved a lot in the past 2 years. Warring States put down the documents in his hands and said to Luo Shu with a smile. System, open the Warring States panel. Ding. The panel is opening. Name, Sengoku. Special talents, Natural Overlord, Super Mind. Domineering, Intermediate Overlord Color, Advanced Armed Color, Advanced Wisdom Color. Physical skills, Top Sword Skills, Junior Swordsman. Ability, Renren Fruit Phantom Beast Species Big Buddha Form. Awakened, Comprehensive Strength, SSS. Is it because he holds a high position and has not taken action with others for many years, so his strength has declined? Not bad, being a lieutenant general of the headquarters shouldn't be a problem. Looking at the comprehensive strength of the last SSS on the Warring States panel, Luo Shu secretly muttered in his heart. But he said it very calmly on his face. Of course, this was just a joke. He believed that Warring States also I won't be familiar with him. Lieutenant General, you are only 17 years old and you are serving as a lieutenant general. In 2 years, I will probably give up this position to you. In fact, the reason why I came to you this time is to give you something, so that after you reach the first half of the grand route, you don't need to wander around like a headless fly and can quickly gain merit. To be honest, as the Marshal of the Navy headquarters, I still hope that you can obtain a military rank that matches your own strength. But you also know that that is unrealistic. Even if you are sitting in my position, you are not qualified to do that. Otherwise, the entire Navy will be in chaos. After all, our duty is to arrest pirates and promote justice. You must keep this in mind. After listening to Luo Shu's words, the smile on Zhongguo's face became even thicker. He did not object to his subordinates having ambitions. After all, he was just the apparent leader of the Navy. Otherwise, for someone like Luo Shu, he would not even they can't help but kill it. This is information about several pirate groups. Their captain bounties are close to 100 million belly, and some even have over 100 million. When the time comes to fight with him, be careful not to be careless. As soon as Warring States finished speaking, he took out a few documents, walked slowly to Luo Shu, handed them into his hands, and asked them seriously. Please rest assured, Lieutenant General He, Marshal of the Warring States period, after a while, all those pirates will surrender. Luo Shu looked at the photos of the pirate captains above. They all looked ferocious, and none of them appeared in the original work. It's normal when you think about it. After all, the world of One Piece is huge, and there are countless pirates. All the characters in the original work or the pirates who appeared may be just the tip of the iceberg. Then, Luo Shu put the documents in his arms and spoke to Sengoku, and he promised to. I have helped you with everything I can, and there is nothing wrong with the rest. And I believe these words. Zephyr has also told you that now that your military rank has been directly promoted to colonel at the Navy headquarters, some people are very dissatisfied. As for who they are, I won't tell you, the rest is up to you. You can leave now, go back and have a good rest, and prepare for tomorrow's voyage. Warring States nodded slightly, adjusted Chinya's glasses with his hand, and said sincerely. Yes, Marshal of the Warring States period, I hope that when I return, you will personally wear the badge of the Major General for me. At this moment, Luo Shu's expression became solemn, he saluted Warring States, said nothing, and walked out of the Marshal's office. This boy's strength has improved so fast. It seems that Zephyr's words are not exaggerated. Now Luo Shu can compete with the highest combat power of our Navy. After Luo Shu left, he slowly returned to his position and said to Warring States with some emotion. And he also has a domineering look, which is not even inferior to mine. What a terrifying talent. But that guy Garp has entered a blind spot in his thinking recently. No matter how ambitious Luo Shu is, what harm will it do to our Navy? He still couldn't see through some things. Warring States' expression returned to its usual calmness. After talking about Luo Shu's questions for a few times, he changed his tone and mentioned the naval hero that had always given him a headache, Monkey D. Garp. I will find time to chat with him, but you also know that with his character, I'm afraid our efforts will be in vain in the end. Otherwise, he would not have refused to be promoted to Admiral of the Navy headquarters. He said with her chin in her hands, she really couldn't do anything about that old friend. When Garp refused to be promoted, a few people understood the reason. Of course, there were more people who had no strength or brains. Cannon fodder, I think Garp is a hero who regards fame and fortune as rubbish. In fact, Garp's dream when he first entered the Navy was to become an admiral of the Navy. If those people knew about it, they would probably die of embarrassment. Time flies, and the next morning, there are still people coming and going at the port of the Navy headquarters, and there are also a large number of Navy patrolling. On a rear admiral level warship, dozens of burly sailors gathered with guns on their backs and cold weapons on their waists. They are all the elites of the lower level Navy. Luo Shu, I sent you here. I hope you will gain a lot from this voyage. Standing on the shore, Zephyr with purple hair and a pair of cool sunglasses said happily to Luo Shu in front of him. Luo Shu boy, don't capsize in the gutter. Yes, the sea is full of dangers, not just from people, so you should always pay attention. Standing behind Zephyr are Ghost Spider and Doberman, two vice admirals of the Navy headquarters. They are pure hawks and are extremely optimistic about Luo Shu. Some of them have the deliberate intentions of the leader of the hawks, Akainu, to win over, but this does not affect the relationship between Luo Shu and the two of them. Now Luo Shu is about to lead his men on a voyage alone for the first time, and they happen to have no mission, so they will naturally see them off in person. There are even several rear admirals from the Navy headquarters, as well as the colonel senior official stood in the distance, watching Luo Shu. As for their names, even Luo Shu himself could not name them. It was obvious that they were trying to curry favor with Luo Shu or show their faces in front of him, but this was also normal. In their opinion, Luo Shu will surely rise step by step after returning from this voyage, and may even become one of the people standing at the top of the pyramid of the Navy headquarters in the future. If they don't get to know him now, or meet him face to face, I'm afraid I won't have a chance in the future. Thank you all for sending me this. I, Luo Shu, will keep this in mind. If it is useful in the future, I will definitely not let you down. Luo Shu, who was standing on the deck of the warship, waved to everyone at the port. He saw their appearance clearly and remembered it in his heart. If he could help me in the future, he would not refuse. This thing is when it comes to reciprocity, no matter what the purpose of those people is, after all, if you come to see him off in person, you can't put on a dead face, right? As the saying goes, you can't stretch out your hand without hitting the smiling person. Set sail. Following Drake's order, the Rear Admiral level warship slowly started to move, slowly disappeared from everyone's sight, and headed towards the first half of the grand route. Boss Luo Shu, you are so domineering, so many people came to see you off during this tour. When your military rank is promoted again, there will definitely be more people who want to curry favor with you. After leaving the Navy headquarters, Derek said respectfully while pouring wine for Luo Shu. He now feels that his choice is extremely correct, and only the mythical figure in front of him is qualified for him to follow him. This all comes from strength. Drake, your talent is not bad, you must work harder to cultivate, otherwise what you have may suddenly disappear at some point. That feeling is terrifying. Luo Shu, who was leaning back on a deck chair, put on a pair of beach shorts, slippers, and sunglasses. His strong upper body was naked. He picked up a glass of wine and drank it in one gulp, feeling a little confused at the same time. Said to Drake. He knew very well that except for Zephyr, the teacher, everyone else had some purpose more or less. This was all because of his talent, strength, and unlimited future prospects. Otherwise, elite class students like Binz would not be qualified to talk to that group of people. So he kept reminding himself in his heart that he must complete a certain amount of practice every day, and he should never fall behind or delay. Only in this way will his strength become stronger day by day, and he will catch up with those strong men who stand at the top of this world earlier. Yes, Boss Luo Shu. After refilling Luo Shu's drink again, Derek bowed and said. He didn't think that he would be embarrassed by doing this, but he was very happy. Didn't this just prove that he was an important subordinate around Luo Shu? He was very happy. He was happy to serve Luo Shu tea and water. A few days later, in the first half of the Grand Line, a small town called Camp was being invaded by pirates. No, it should be said to be a one-sided massacre. I beg you not to kill me, I haven't lived enough yet, and I have an old man above me and a young man below me. You pirates, why on earth do you want to kill me? If it's for money, I'm willing to pay all my property. That's right, we have contacted the G60 branch, and the Navy will be sent there soon to destroy you. I advise you to run for your lives quickly, otherwise when the Navy comes, you will all die here, or you will be caught in the underwater prison. Ah, hateful, my son is dead, and I will fight with you fools. Quote. In the small town, the civilians who had not yet been killed looked at the pirates sharpening their swords. Some begged for mercy, some threatened, and a few resisted desperately. But their fate was very miserable. After all, their weapons, if you are not sophisticated and your strength is low, how can you fight against pirates? I don't know why the captain gave such an order to kill these civilians without giving up the wealth. Yes, this place is very close to the G60 branch. I believe that the Navy there will arrive soon. I heard that Major General Mandes is very powerful. Is our captain a rival? You are new here and you don't know at all that 2 years ago, our captain was chased by that naval branch Major General Mandes for 3 days and 3 nights. The pirate group lost most of its members, and in the end only the captain and deputy captain were left. There were several combatants, even the navigator, who died in the escape. Forget it, let's follow the captain's orders, otherwise you may die. It's best not to guess something. Not only the civilians were wondering why they and others were willing to pay for their wealth but were killed, even the pirates who took action didn't know. They only knew that their captain ordered that everyone in this town be slaughtered. At the same time, a very conspicuous pirate ship was docked on the shore of the town. With the unique skull flag, it looked a bit scary. 2 middle-aged pirates with a huge difference in stature were sitting on in the captain's room, one of them is called Doc and the other is called Dar. They are the captain and vice-captain of this pirate group, and they are brothers from the same father and mother. However, their eyes are now placed on a brown fruit with strange patterns on the table. Brother, this is the devil fruit. Why don't you just let me eat it? Maybe I will gain powerful strength and be able to defeat that guy from Mandes. As the younger brother, Dar looked at the devil fruit in front of him, his face twisted with excitement. He has been living under the protection of his brother. Even some of the minions on the ship were secretly dissatisfied with him, so he thinks that there is an opportunity in front of him, and since his brother loves him very much, he should not refuse it. Dar, this devil fruit is dedicated to Lord Bloodhand. My brother is also a devil fruit user. I can tell you clearly that even if you eat him, you will not be invincible directly and you will still be unable to defeat man. I don't need to say more about how miserable our fate will be. This time we paid a heavy price to avenge our parents. If you can get other devil fruits in the future, I will definitely let you eat them. Duck shook his head, but his fat ears and nose looked extremely funny. It was obvious that his knowledge was far beyond that of his younger brother, and his words showed his hatred for this town. If it was too close to the Navy G60 branch, he would have destroyed it long ago. You're right, brother. Those people once forced our parents to death, and even treated the two of us as slaves, fishing and working for them every day. What a fool. As soon as Doc's words fell, Dar's face gradually became gloomy, and he said angrily. It turns out that their parents drifted to this town from other places many years ago, and were later influenced by this town. They were ostracized and suppressed by the common people, and eventually their parents died when they were young. It may be because they were too tired in their lives, but the two of them regarded it as being forced to death by the common people in this small town. But not long after, without the protection of their parents, the two of them were captured by a big shot in the town and taken to his home. They were asked to work for him for free. At most, they were rewarded with some food every day to prevent them from starving to death and money. They didn't give any money, and other civilians saw it, and no one sympathized. It wasn't until one day that Doc, as the elder brother, accidentally ate the animal-type wild boar fruit, and they knocked down several guards. He took his younger brother to sea and became a pirate. They have never forgotten the humiliation they suffered in this small town. Every time they think of it, they will be angry. However, the G60 branch of the Navy is very close to here, and they dare not make any big moves. Last time, when the self-confident Dark led the pirate group to destroy this town, he was stopped in advance by the top officer of the G60 branch, Mandes, who even pursued them frantically. The pirate group almost turned back. Be wiped out. Until a few days ago, he obtained a devil fruit, so he contacted the captain of the Blood Hand Pirates and explained the reason, and the other party welcomed him to join and told him that as long as he got the devil fruit as a gift, they, the Bloody Hand Pirates, can help them resist Mandy's pursuit. That's why we have the scene of Camp Town facing catastrophe. Otherwise, even if he lends some courage to Doc, he wouldn't order such a thing. After all, he hasn't lived enough yet. In fact, this is also due to the intimidation of the top officer of the G60 branch, Rear Admiral Mandes of the Navy branch. This man is very jealous of evil. He does not allow civilians to be plundered by pirates in the sea areas under his jurisdiction. However, because he has a very resolute personality and is not liked by the top brass of the Navy, so far, he is still serving as a branch major general in his early 30s. Otherwise, with his achievements over the years, he would have returned to Marineland long ago, was promoted to Rear Admiral at the Navy headquarters, and even went to other branches to become Lieutenant General. Faster. Doc, you dare to invade Camp Town. I will definitely kill you this time. At this time, Mandes, who had already set off from the Navy G60 branch, stood on the deck of the warship, yelled at the Navy soldiers behind him, and repeatedly urged the warship to speed up. He was really angry now. He did not expect that the man who had been Dark, who he had beaten like a street rat, dared to appear in the waters under his jurisdiction and invade Camp Town openly. This was simply a slap in the face. Mandes swore that this time he will go all out and definitely kill all the members of the other party's pirate group. That's right, it's not about arresting them, but killing them. He will never be lenient towards pirates who do such cruel things. Report to Major General Mandes that a warship appeared ahead. Their sailing route seems to be the same as ours. After a few minutes, a naval soldier with a telescope ran up behind Mandes and said respectfully. Although Mandes was not liked by his superiors, he was very popular among his branch. He has great prestige, and the naval soldiers under his command are extremely convinced of him. It turned out to be a Rear Admiral class warship. Could it be that they were sent by the headquarters to patrol? Leave him alone. Keep accelerating. Mandes took the telescope, looked at the warship in the distance, and murmured in a low voice. However, He was extremely agitated now and had no idea of meeting the commander on the warship, so he continued to issue his orders. Tisk tisk. It's interesting. It seems that we encountered an unexpected situation. Are there any villages or towns near this sea area? On the other side, Luo Shu listened to Drake's report, raised the corner of his mouth slightly, and asked softly. In this situation, even a fool knows that the warship behind is to handle things, and the world of One Piece can let the Navy if there is such urgency. Then there is only one possibility: pirates have invaded a certain place, or the Revolutionary Army has been discovered. No matter what the situation is, Luo Shu has no reason not to participate. He is worried that wandering on the sea these days is a bit boring. In his previous life, he could always read some online articles where the protagonist would feel like a bird flying when he left the Navy headquarters. He believed it to be true at the time. But now he was speechless about it. If he had a choice, he really wanted to. Staying in Marineland and sailing on the sea is really boring. There is a small town called Campo very close to where we are. Drake looked at the map and immediately pointed to a small town-style pattern and said to Luo Shu, "Drive to this town at full speed immediately. Looks like we're in luck and will soon encounter some sea creatures." Luo Shu looked at it casually and immediately gave an order to Drake. He had a hunch that something must have happened there, so he had to arrive before the warships behind him, so that the pirates or the Revolutionary Army could be killed. His achievements will be attributed to him. Just like that, less than 3 minutes later, Mandes, who was standing on the deck, could not find the warship in the distance no matter how he looked with his telescope. That's right. There is a gap between warships. Luo Shu's Rear Admiral class warship is the latest model launched by the Navy headquarters. It is very fast and of higher quality. It is not comparable to the old warship of Mandes. This hits like a tractor and a car driving on a wide road. No matter how hard the tractor steps on the accelerator, it can't catch up with the car in front. In this regard, Mandes's head was full of black lines. Looking at the warship under his feet, for the first time, he came up with the idea of replacing it. After all, anything that has been used for a long time will have feelings. This warship has followed him in battles for many years, and it has never been broken despite repairs. He did not want to replace it. But now his mind has changed. If his warship is fast enough, wouldn't it save a lot of time when chasing pirates or going to rescue certain towns in the future? Ah, you pirates must die a good death. I won't let you go even if I'm a ghost. With a vicious curse, the last person in the town also fell. In this short period of time, Camp Town was littered with corpses and rivers of blood. As for the pirates, it was because they had just killed people. All of them had fierce looks on their faces, but they were extremely excited. Maybe the wildness hidden in their hearts burst out a little at this moment. Very good. Now that the matter is done, it's time for us to retreat. Otherwise, it would be terrible to wait for Mandes, that hateful Navy, to arrive. Looking at the scene in the town, Doc nodded with satisfaction. He waved his hand and signaled the pirates to get on the boat and prepare to leave here, otherwise they would not have the chance to evacuate when Mandes came. Before joining the Blood Hand pirates, his heart could not let go. As Dark, who knew Mandes's character well, he knew very well that if he met the other party at this time, he would be killed. The probability is almost 100%. Captain Dark, a warship is rushing toward me quickly, and we have no chance to escape. Just when the pirate ship was about to launch, a navigator hurriedly came to Duck with a sad face, shouting in a panic. What? Is it the Navy? Are you kidding? How could they come so fast? What to do? Do we really have to pay with our lives for those civilians? I haven't lived enough yet, Captain, please think of a way. It's our fault that we acted too slowly. If we had moved faster, we might have been able to evacuate safely. Quote. And because he shouted this, the other pirates on the ship heard it, and they all panicked and started talking. They lost the courage of massacring civilians just now, and instead showed their greedy and fearful character. Since there is no way to escape, then fight them. Kids, let's wait together on the shore. If you don't want to die, you'd better face this upcoming war with 200% energy. You know, the Navy will not show mercy to us. Seeing this situation, Doc frowned. After thinking for a moment, he could only choose to have a final fight with the Navy on the shore. If it were on the sea, facing the shells from the Navy warship, they would die even more fast. Only in hand-to-hand combat on land can we win. The captain is right, those Navy will not let us go. Even if we surrender, we will still be executed. In this case, if we fight with the Navy, everyone on the left and right will die anyway. I have never killed the Navy before. Although I don't want to die, if I can kill a Marine, this life should be worth it. Quote. For a moment, the expressions of the pirates changed rapidly, and in the end they all looked a bit resigned to death. There was nothing they could do about it. Dark's words made sense. Under the pressure of death, they would naturally fight. The more people are afraid of death, the crazier they will behave at this time. Boss Luo Shu, those pirates don't seem to be planning to escape. They actually landed on the island one after another, seemingly waiting for our arrival. What a commendable courage. On the other side, only a few hundred meters away from the shore of Camp Town, a Rear Admiral-class warship gradually slowed down, but Drake on the deck showed a very disdainful look. He didn't think that the captain of the opposing pirate group, Dark, who has a bounty of 20 million belly, can have such strength that he dares to choose to confront them head-on. He really has never died before. These pirates will be dealt with by you. Remember to search the treasure trove on their ship to see if there is anything good in it. Luo Shu stretched out and didn't look at the pirates standing on the shore at all. Instead, he directly ordered Derek that he really had no interest in the Dark Pirates. In fact, he only wanted the Overlord. When the color hockey is activated, everyone in the opponent's pirate group, from the captain to the minions, will faint. No one can be exempted. This is because they are too weak. Do not worry, Boss Luo Shu. Drake bowed and said to Luo Shu. Then, he glanced at the pirates in the distance. Those two navies on the deck are not Mandy's, ha ha ha, that's great. Is God helping us? Looking at the warship slowly docked on the shore, Duck clearly saw the faces of Luo Shu and Drake on the deck. After realizing that it was not Mandy's, he almost laughed out loud. He did not expect that he had my worries are unnecessary. One look at the age of the two Marines, they should be the kind of trash with little experience, strength, and low military rank. Navy brat, listen, I am Doc with a bounty of 20 million Baileys. If you choose to retreat now, I will pretend that nothing happened, otherwise your fate will be as miserable as those of the civilians. However, Doc did not order a direct attack, but made some threats. In this sea, not every pirate can survive after killing the Navy. This requires strong strength. At least the Dark Pirates don't have the strength in this area. So in his opinion, the best result is to scare Luo Shu and others away, and then they set off for the Blood Hand Pirates, and then they can happily live in the great world. The first half of the route was amazing. Roar! Just when the other pirates thought that the two familiar Marines would retreat, a roar like a ferocious beast suddenly sounded, and Drake instantly transformed into an Allosaurus and jumped up from the deck, quickly rushed towards the pirates. Almost a dozen pirates died tragically under its claws within a short time of meeting each other. Drake's devil fruit is also considered powerful among ancient species, especially after the transformation. He can be said to be the king of team battles. Even if some pirates sneak attack him, they can't break through the defense. Facing Drake in this form, these pirates have no choice but to die. As for the Navy on the warship, except for Luo Shu, everyone except the others looked at the shore with shocked faces. Drake was killing all the pirates. They didn't expect that the headquarters major who usually obeyed Luo Shu's orders would be so powerful. The one sitting on the deck, Luo Shu, who is the highest officer on this warship, has such terrifying strength. It has to be said that if you think about it carefully, you are afraid that even these low-level Navy can still master this kind of thing. From the strength of Drake, it can bring out that Luo Shu is the real monster. This monster, our swords and guns can't break through his defense. How is that possible? Like our captain, he is a devil fruit user, but it seems that his abilities are stronger. Quick, aim the gun at his eyes, there must be a flaw there. My arm is broken, it hurts so much. Who can help me? Quote. The pirates who suffered a thunderous blow lost their fighting spirit. There was nothing they could do. Drake's devil fruit ability was so powerful that their attacks became weak. After only a minute, most of the thieves were dead. The rest were either seriously injured or kept retreating, looking frightened. Roar! Go to hell, you fools! Tyrannosaurus tail wagging. Drake roared angrily. He no longer wanted to play with these little bugs. He arched his body slightly and swept his huge tail towards the retreating pirates. Boom, boom, boom. Immediately afterwards, there was a muffled sound, and some of the minions were blown apart, while more flew hundreds of meters upside down, with all the bones in their bodies shattered. It could be said that they were dead. Elder brother, what should I do? That guy is so strong. Standing in the distance and watching Dar, he stood behind his brother Doc with a fearful expression. After discovering that everyone else died tragically, he was even more scared to death, and asked his brother in a trembling voice. That kid is obviously so young, how could he be so strong? If my devil fruit had been replaced by his ability, I might have already traversed the grand route. Doc was speechless for a long time. Looking at Derek walking towards him step by step, he couldn't help but have an idea in his mind. Yes, he was envious. At the same time, he also secretly hated his bad luck. Otherwise, how could he be convinced? Next, bore fruit. It's finally the turn of you two. It seems that the relationship between you is more than just a captain and a vice captain. But it doesn't matter. Remember not to be a pirate in your next life. Drake, who had already arrived in front of the two of them, transformed into a dragon. As he spoke, he raised his sharp claws, as if he could kill the two pirates in front of him at any time. Plop. We will stop updating novels on this site, move to our new site, web links. Lord Marine, I have a devil fruit in my hands. I am willing to offer it with both hands and ask you to spare my life with my younger brother. Facing this scene, Doc no longer had the idea of fighting for his life. He knelt down directly on the ground, begged for mercy and made a promise. Yes, Lord Marine, that is a powerful devil fruit. If you, as an ability user, don't need it, you can give it to the Navy in exchange for credit, and you can also train your subordinates' talents. Doll behind him also fell to his knees at the same time. His words were much more gorgeous than his brother's, which shows that he is not suitable to be a pirate at all. Compared to letting you go, it is much more cost-effective to kill you. We will still be able to get the devil fruit by then. Phew, phew, Drake said with a cruel smile on his face, and shook his head gently, rejecting the two people's proposal. At the same time, he quickly stretched out his claws and pinched the two people's necks without any movement during the process. Hesitant. Then, dozens of sailors on the warship accompanied Drake to search carefully on the pirate ship and found some treasures and a devil fruit. Boss Luo Shu, what is the power of this devil fruit? Drake, who had not yet wiped off the blood on his body, stood next to Luo Shu and asked curiously. This is normal. With Drake's status and strength in the Navy, he has no access to devil fruits. Naturally, he wouldn't know the ability of the devil fruit in Luo Shu's hand when it comes to things like illustrations. Hey, this pirate captain is really lucky. If I remember correctly, this is an animal-type ancient species Emperorsuchus fruit. Its development potential is definitely no worse than your devil fruit. After looking at it carefully for a while, a light flashed in Luo Shu's eyes. In the past 2 years, he had passed Zephyr in advance and borrowed the Devil Fruit illustrated book and written it down one by one, otherwise he would not have been able to recognize the devil. The ability of the fruit. And this Emperor Crocodile fruit is considered a powerful existence among ancient species. If it is given to a person with excellent talent, it will definitely create a monster-level combat power. There should be no problem in being promoted to SSS in the future. In fact, in his opinion, SSS and SSS Plus are a watershed, and there is a big gap between them. Even if they are at the same level, they are still strong and weak. Otherwise, in the original work, the battle between Aokiji and Akainu would not have been broken a leg. He is also a top natural ability user, and he is still ice and magma. It can be said that they are mutually reinforcing and incompatible, and no one has an advantage. The final competition may be whose physical skills, domineering, and powerful body. Obviously Kai the dog is slightly better, but if the two of them are taken out alone and placed on a desert island to challenge Kaido or Charlotte Lingling, the outcome will be very suspenseful, and the winner will most likely be that person. There are two monsters, one is impossible to kill and the other is difficult for you to break through. Just thinking about it gives you a headache. Is it also an ancient devil fruit? Listening to Luo Shu's words, Derek's eyes widened and he said with a look of shock. He knew too well the power of the devil fruit grown in ancient times. When he entered the Naval Academy, relying on his devil fruit, he is invincible in the world, and no one of his own age can be his enemy. It is conceivable that a powerful devil fruit can definitely bring transformation to a person. Report, Colonel Luo Shu, a warship is coming. At this time, a naval soldier in charge of investigation came behind Luo Shu, saluted, lowered his head, and said very respectfully. It seems that it is still a step too late, but it is a good thing that the dark pirates can be wiped out, even if it is not done by me personally. There were still a few hundred meters away from Camp Town. Standing on the deck, Mandes looked at the large number of corpses lying on the shore and the corpses in the town. He had roughly guessed the ending, not to mention Luo Shu's warship. It is so conspicuous, and it forms a sharp contrast with the dilapidated pirate ship. Even if you are mentally retarded, you should understand. It turns out to be Luo Shu, the youngest captain in the history of our navy. No wonder it looks so familiar, I've read that newspaper before. Do you need to take a break at my G60 branch? The old warship slowly docked next to Luo Shu's warship. Mandes looked at it carefully. Luo Shu, who was not wearing a suit or a cloak of justice, immediately recognized the other party's identity. This also stems from the fact that the Navy was promoted. When Luo Shu was the colonel of the headquarters, he published many newspapers, but it did not attract the attention of other major forces. On the contrary, civilians and other naval forces talked about it. As for the pirates, they were more disdainful. They did not think that a young man how powerful a 17-year-old boy can be. Therefore, Luo Shu's promotion incident did not bring any shock to this chaotic world. Major General Mandes, there is no need to rest. This time I came to the first half of the Grand Line to capture or kill some pirates. I have a busy schedule, so I won't disturb you. As for this, let's leave it to Major General Mandes. I'll leave first. Luo Shu raised his eyebrows. Even he didn't like the person in front of him very much, and the other person was not worthy of his deep friendship. He simply chatted with him for a few words, took the devil fruit and Dark's head and left. After all, this is a feat, and he will naturally not let it go. Otherwise, how can he prove that he killed the captain of the Dark Pirates? Major General Mandes, that kid is so crazy. Not only did I take the credit from you, but I didn't even give you face. After Luo Shu's warship left, a branch colonel standing behind Mandes said with some air. There was nothing he could do about it. Mandes was too important in his heart, and Luo Shu's behavior, in his opinion, was not giving him the face of his commander. Of course, he would not feel good about it. Forget it, he is not something we can talk about. I have a hunch that this guy named Luo Shu will become a big shot in the Navy in the future. Do you think the top brass of the Navy headquarters are fools? Let a young boy be the captain of the Navy headquarters. No, this just shows that the other party is enough to hold this position in terms of strength and command. Even more than that. Moreover, those sailors were neatly dressed. Including him, only the major of the Navy headquarters standing next to him had bloodstains on his body. It could be seen that these people were killed by the other party. It's not easy for him to have such powerful subordinates to follow him. Even I'm afraid I can't be his opponent. Mandes shook his head, looked at the place where Luo Shu left, and said solemnly. He had to admit that his brain was indeed very useful. He could analyze many things from only one-sided information. This proved that he is not the kind of person who only has strength and no brains, but the bad thing is that his character is very bad. He is not born to be an official, at most he can only be a gun, but no matter what, this gun not quite sharp yet. Boss Luo Shu, that branch major general seems to be very strong. I can feel the dangerous aura emanating from him. If I fight against him, I'm afraid I won't be his match. On the other side, Drake, who had changed into a new uniform, came to Luo Shu who was eating a delicious meal and said. He had been weird about this before. In his opinion, with the strength of the other party, he should not still be in charge. Rear Admiral, Naval Branch. Ah, indeed, his strength is comparable to that of the weaker lieutenant generals in the Navy, but it should be due to his unlikable personality, but this is not a problem. The most important thing is that he lacks factors worthy of being attracted by the top brass of the Navy. If nothing unexpected happens in his life, he can only be a rear admiral of the Navy branch. If he is lucky, he will be transferred back to the headquarters and become a rear admiral of the headquarters. Otherwise, he will always stay in the first half of this great and insignificant sea route. Luo Shu sneered and said that even he was not optimistic about the other party, let alone those high-ranking Navy officials with very vicious eyes. Now in his 30s, Mandy's strength can hardly grow. He has stopped at S, around. It can only reach S level at most, and it is slightly weaker among the backbone of the Navy headquarters. Who would want to bring this trouble to their side? Quote. Drake nodded and didn't say anything else. Instead, he sat on the side and ate the Neptune meat and delicacies to replenish the consumption of the battle. But he didn't know what was happening in his heart. Think about something. A few days later, the news of the destruction of the Dark Pirates reached the ears of the captain of the Blood Hand Pirates, Nov. He was immediately furious, not because of the death of the member who was about to join his command, but because he cared about the death of the member who was about to join his command. A devil fruit that didn't fall into his hands. Now, he is in his 30s, and his strength has not improved for a long time. He has been looking for powerful devil fruits. Although he has dealt with a lot of devil fruits, they are all with rubbish abilities. If you eat them, it can't increase much strength. However, he just couldn't find it. Not long ago, Doc contacted him and claimed that he had a devil fruit there, and described the shape, color, etc., but he didn't know its ability. Mandy's, who had done some research on devil fruits, thought this was a good opportunity. He was already old anyway, and if he delayed it any longer, the consequences would be serious, so he decided to take a gamble. While he was waiting, a piece of news came out. All the members of the Dark Pirates had been wiped out, and it was all done by the youngest colonel in the history of the Navy. This news was like a bolt from the blue to November. He closed his eyes and thought. He knew that the devil fruit would never appear in his hands in this life, so he was planning privately recently to take revenge on Luo Shu. Teach this young colonel who ruined his good deeds a lesson and let him know how deep the water is in the first half of the Grand Line. Another half-month passed. In the first half of the Grand Line, there was an island called Root. This was the base of the Bloody Hand Pirates. However, because this island was relatively isolated and there were no civilians living nearby, the Navy did not they sent strong men to exterminate them, but instead allowed them to develop. Captain, Deadpool is here. Quick, please bring my brother Thor in. In a blood-red, palace-like building, Novus sat on the exquisite chair, listening to the reports from his men. His face immediately lit up, and he immediately gave his orders. Snap, snap, snap. November, you really know how to enjoy it. You actually made this unknown island so gorgeous. It seems that you have wasted a lot of effort. Before the gangster left, a strong man with a height of more than 4 meters walked in with firm steps and joked to November. He was the Thor in the other man's mouth, and he had allowed his nickname, Deadpool, represents the bodyguard of death. This nickname was not given by himself, but since his debut as a bounty hunter, he has never failed in any mission he has taken. Of course, most of them those killed were all pirates, or some of their peers, including princes and nobles who had little strength but were poisonous. Where, Thor, if you like, you can live here. If you want to join my brother's pirate group, then the position of deputy captain that has been vacant must be yours. With a smile on his face, Novus quickly stood up from his seat and waved away the subordinate. Then, he came to Thor and said flatteringly, "There is no way, this is the gap in strength. Even if he rewards him now, even with a fortune as high as 100 million belly, he still didn't dare to be arrogant with the person in front of him. In fact, if he hadn't saved the other person once, he wouldn't have invited Thor here today. After all, he was a pirate leader. The other party is a powerful bounty hunter, and the relationship is self-evident. I will not become a pirate. As I told you at the beginning, my parents were killed by pirates, so please don't talk about this kind of issue again in the future. I once promised you that if one day you encounter a life crisis, I can help you for free. Tell me, come to me this time, what do you need me to do?" As soon as November's words fell, Thor's face gradually became ugly. He suppressed the anger in his heart, kept himself rational, and said in a low voice, "Ah ha ha, brother, got it. Well, I called you here today because there is a very annoying guy who ruined my good deeds and paid attention to my head. Are you talking about the captain of the Navy headquarters named Luo Shu? You should know that I will not kill the Navy." Before November finished speaking, Thor immediately interrupted him. As a bounty hunter, he values intelligence information very much. Recently, 4 pirate groups have been wiped out in the first half of the Grand Line. One of them is not very powerful, that is, the Dark Pirates, but the captains of the remaining 3 pirate groups all offer a bounty of about 80 million, and there is even one with a bounty of 120 million belly, but they all failed. Survived. They were all killed by Luo Shu, the youngest captain in the history of the Navy. Nowadays, the pirates in the first half of the Grand Line are frightened by him. There are many pirates, so they hide, for fear of being attacked by the other party. Find it out. So, after he thought about this matter, after inner analysis, he immediately guessed what Nov was thinking, so he directly and decisively rejected the other party's request. For a navy like Luo Shu, he would I admire you very much. It is very rare to have strong strength at such a young age. The Navy has not produced a monster like this in I don't know how many years. As for the last time this happened, it was when the 3 generals had just graduated, when. Thor, there is nothing I can do now. Originally, I wanted to gather some pirates and teach that kid a lesson, letting him know that the pirates of the Grand Line are not something he can deal with just by himself. But I didn't expect that his strength is so strong. If nothing else happens, he will come to my place recently. With my strength and the Blood Hand pirates, I really don't have the confidence to be able to stop this monster. That's why I urgently notify you to come over. You don't want me, my savior, to be killed by the Navy like this. November touched the beard on his chin in embarrassment, then gritted his teeth and could only say to Thor shamelessly. He had no other choice now. His previous plan to retaliate against Luo Shu has been declared aborted. And on the contrary, now he is afraid that Luo Shu will come to him, and he no longer looks as high-spirited as he did a few days ago. The anger generated by being cut off from the devil fruit does not know where it has dispersed. His heart was already in his throat, and he was very afraid that Luo Shu would suddenly arrive on Root Island and launch an attack on his pirate group. In the end, he had no choice but to play the emotional card, which was also mixed with there is a hint of threat. He knows Thor very well, otherwise he would not say such hurtful words. Phew, can't you leave here? Wealth and life are incomparable. November took a deep breath, looked at the various precious ornaments around him, and this luxurious residence, and couldn't help but ask. This is the wealth accumulated by my brother who has been at sea for more than 10 years. Of course, even if I give it up, it is not a big deal, but who can guarantee that that guy will chase me everywhere? Judging from his performance in the first half of the Grand Line, he is clearly eyeing pirate captains like us who have relatively high bounties. Novus smiled bitterly and replied, he is not the kind of person who would risk his life for money. The main reason is that he is afraid of Luo Shu and will not let him go just because he has moved to another place. After all, he can avoid the first grade of junior high school but not the 15th grade. For he never underestimated the Navy's intelligence. After being a pirate for so many years and with his current status, how could he not have cruel experiences? Once he is targeted by the Navy, his life is almost impossible, especially in the first half of the Grand Line, which is incomparable to the New World. Even if he escapes with the pirate group, with the Navy's intelligence system, it is almost impossible to survive. It won't be long before his location is discovered, and he will still be dead by then. I will stay with you for a while. If that Luo Shu really comes to destroy your pirate group, I can stop it, but that's all. The atmosphere gradually became awkward, until after a while, Thor frowned and said to November. Indeed, the other party had grasped his lifeline. He has always been a very loyal person, even if he kills people like crazy, but he abided by his oath very much. However, he did not say that he would work with November to kill Luo Shu. He only said that he could take action to save the other party's life. With Thor here, I can finally have a peaceful sleep. Come on, let's go have a drink. November could no longer hide the joy in his heart at this time, and immediately took Thor and walked towards the inner hall, where food and wine had been prepared. However, a vicious thought suddenly appeared in his heart, that is, if there is a chance, kill the colonel named Luo Shu, and then publish the news, saying that the other party was killed by Thor. By then, not only can you relieve your own crisis, you can also kill Thor, who has already returned. Eliminate the unstable factors in Qing's relationship. If Luo Shu is really killed, even if the Navy goes to investigate, the matter will definitely be pinned on Thor. After all, November's strength is indeed not very impressive, but it is difficult to do so. The difficulty is how to kill Luo Shu. This is the most difficult part of the plan. On the other side, Luo Shu's warship has just finished replenishing supplies from a small town and is continuing to accelerate towards the distant sea. Sir, which pirate group are we targeting this time? Looking at Luo Shu, who was standing on the deck practicing one of the 6 naval styles, Lanjia, Derek ran behind him and asked respectfully. As for the title, it was changed under Luo Shu's instruction a few days ago. The reason is that Luo Shu felt that the title, boss, sounded arrogant and was not in line with his Navy's image of justice, so he asked Drake to call him, sir, in the future. Root Island is where the Bloody Hand pirates are stationed. Its captain has a bounty of 100 million belly. It is considered to be the pirate with a higher bounty in the first half of the Grand Line. It's just a pity that Crocodile has joined. Shichibukai, otherwise cutting off his head would be enough for me to be promoted to Rear Admiral of the Navy headquarters. Luo Shu said without looking back, and his body movements did not change. He kept kicking out the air blades towards the sky or the sea. Yes, he did have the idea to kill Crocodile's trash and become his own a bargaining chip for promotion. However, for the time being, I can only think about it. After all, the other party is the Shichibukai recognized by the world government. Unless they have made any big mistakes, the Navy is not allowed to go to arrest or destroy them, otherwise it's a naked slap in the face of the world government. Quote. Drake was so shocked by Luo Shu's words that he opened his mouth, but he couldn't make any sound. After calming down for a while, he left the deck with Luo Shu's order. If someone else said such unrealistic words, he would not hesitate to attack the other party, but Luo Shu, the boss he recognized, was different. He had great trust in him, so he naturally felt that Crocodile's strength must be better than but Luo Shu. In fact, his idea was right. Today's Crocodile is really not Luo Shu's opponent. 10 years ago, he might have been qualified to fight Luo Shu. Because he was defeated by Whitebeard, he lost his fighting spirit. He has not practiced for many years, his strength has been severely reduced, and he can no longer even use his domineering force. He is in a similar situation to Moonlight Moria, a typical waste. However, Crocodile is more or less stronger than Moonlight Moria. After all, he was once a monster-level fighter. His talent cannot be ignored. He was able to draw with Douglas Barrett many times. That's no joke. After dealing with the Blood Hand pirates, we can go to Sky Island to have a look. That guy Aniro is a bit creative. He did develop the Thunder Fruit well, but his vision is a bit low. If he can be taught physical skills if you are domineering, it will be a big help to me in the future. While practicing the 6th form of the Navy, Luo Shu suddenly came up with an idea. Yes, he decided to go to Gaia Island after a while to see if he could use the sea current to rush to the empty island. Of course, even if there is no sea current, it's very easy to go up. The worst thing is, just let Drake throw him up. It's just 10,000 meters in the air. Kaido can jump from the top without being hurt. He was thrown up from below. Using his copper and iron, he believes that he will not suffer any injuries despite his bone talent. In his previous life, he felt sad for Enel on Sky Island and was killed by the plot. The powerful Devil Fruit ability, whether it is destructive or ornamental, one of the best beings in the world of One Piece, was so easily defeated by the Straw Hat Kid. The most interesting thing is that rubber is not conductive. Isn't it clear that lightning can produce high temperatures, not to mention that it can melt rubber? Melt it away, or at least burn it. No matter from any aspect, Luffy has no chance of winning. Coupled with the few friends who have not left and grown up, the most likely result is to be killed by Nailu killed him. But in the end, he defeated Nailu in an extremely weird way. Luo Shu was really speechless about this. After he arrived, he would never let such a bloody thing happen again. Just like that, as time passed, Luo Shu's warship quickly traveled through the sea and headed for Root Island. He didn't know that the Bloody Hand pirates stationed there were already well prepared and ready for battle. Of course, even if he knew, he will only sneer at this. How can a garbage pirate with a bounty of 100 million Baileys still make waves in his hand? If he wants to kill him, the other party will not have any accidents, just like the ones he killed before. Just like those captains of the pirate group, they were crushed to death without any resistance. Colonel Luo Shu, the front is Loot Island, but the pirates on the island reacted very quickly, as if they knew that I was coming in advance, and were ready to fight us. Please give the order, whether to fire. After 2 full days, Luo Shu's warship finally arrived at Root Island. Nothing happened during this period. He was just boring on the road every day. At this time, a naval soldier in charge of reconnaissance came to Luo Shu. In front of him, after saluting, he reported loudly. Click, click, click it, stop the warship and bring me all the cannonballs. Luo Shu folded his hands together and made a sound. He did not give an order for his navy to rush to the island and fight the pirates. Instead, he asked to prepare cannonballs for him. Yes. He thought of Garp's decisive battle in the original book. The trick is to use your own power to throw the cannonballs one by one. Its power is beyond imagination. If it is combined with armed domineering, it will become even more terrifying. Yes, Colonel Luo Shu. The Marine didn't hesitate at all and immediately called his other companions to prepare to take action with him. As an elite soldier in the Navy, he had already guessed Luo Shu's purpose. After all, most of the Navy knew Garp's unique skills. Soon, the warship stopped a few hundred meters away from Root Island. Dozens of sailors carried boxes of cannonballs and placed them next to Luo Shu, while Drake stood with a smile on his face. There, he was mourning for the pirates on Root Island. He seemed to have seen those. He looks like he's broken into pieces and dead. Look, that warship stopped. Could it be that it saw that we were already prepared, so it got scared and didn't dare to attack our island? Needless to say, this must be a fact. What a bullshit. The youngest captain in the Navy turned out to be nothing more than a gutless loser. Now I am beginning to wonder, were those powerful pirates really killed by such a coward? Could there be other powerful Navy helping, but just putting their name on him? This is very likely to be the case. Maybe this is done intentionally by the Navy to make the other party more famous and show that there are many talents in the Navy. Quote, quote. On the shore of Root Island, a group of pirates immediately started talking in private after discovering that Luo Shu's warship suddenly stopped. However, most of them were sarcastic, and there was nothing nice to say. They all thought that the other party was scared, so they didn't dare to move forward, and they might retreat without a fight after a while. Everyone is on alert. Take cover immediately. But as the captain, November was not so naive. He clearly sensed Luo Shu's actions with his domineering appearance. Then he quickly shouted at his men, and then quickly retreated. Including him, Thor, who was beside him, was much faster than the former. He ran towards the center of the island with lightning speed. His sense of sight and domineering was stronger than that of November. Naturally, he could sense that there were people on the warship. What's the situation? Enjoy a luxurious funeral, fools. Meteor shower. Bow, 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 boom, boom. Just as the two of them retreated, cannonballs blessed with high-level armed domineering burst through the air, blowing the unprepared pirates into pieces. In just 10 seconds, more than 200 cannonballs on the deck were thrown away by Luo Shu. The entire Root Island exploded from the center at this moment, and the surrounding waves were more than 10 meters high. It looks like the end of the world. Sir, your meteor shower attack is really powerful. I am afraid that none of the pirates in the first half of the Grand Line can withstand such an attack. Looking at the continuous explosions in the distance, Drake flattered Luo Shu. In his opinion, this level of power has completely sunk the island into the sea, and those pirates have no chance at all. Survived, even the captain of this pirate group could not survive. He even felt that even if he was on the island, the final result would be death. His idea was not exaggerated. Even if he was not blown up, as a devil fruit user, in such a situation, he would probably be unable to control his body and fall into the sea, and his death would be even worse. The explosion lasted for several minutes, and in the smoke after being blown away by the sea breeze, although the smell of gunpowder still remained, the miserable scene was extremely conspicuous. Now, Root Island has disappeared in this sea area, leaving only some blood-stained clothes and a small amount of the corpses of marine life, plus some broken limbs, minced meat, and internal organs. Of course, the most numerous are the building fragments, trees, etc. that can float on the sea on the previous island. In short, they look extremely bloody. Go over and search, and then we have to go somewhere else. Luo Shu didn't explain anything. He just smiled faintly and gave the order at the same time. The Navy soldiers who received the order took a small speedboat and wandered repeatedly in the sea area. Until half an hour later, no treasure was found. May have sunk into the deep sea in the explosion, but one person was found who was not dead. After investigation, it was found that this person was Thor, known as Deadpool, and in the previous explosion, he relied on his physical skills and two-color domineering force forced him to avoid the fatal part, so that although he was seriously injured, it was not life-threatening. On the contrary, that good-for-nothing Nav was smashed to pieces after resisting for a while. He died. Can't die anymore. The system opens this person's panel. Ding. The panel is opening. Name: Thor. Special talent: advanced brutal strength. Dominance: intermediate armed color, intermediate wisdom color. Physical skills: advanced. Sword skills: not beginner. Ability: none. Comprehensive strength: S. There is something. This Deadpool actually has a special talent. Looking at the opponent's panel and the comprehensive evaluation made by the system, Luo Shu couldn't help but feel a little surprised in his heart. There are really not many people with special talents in the world of One Piece. At least, he has not discovered a few, and those no one is simple. It does not mean that the top experts must have special talents, but as long as people with special talents do not die prematurely, they will definitely be able to stand out and be stronger than ordinary people. Obviously, the bounty hunter named Thor in front of him belongs to the type who is talented and has already grown up. In addition, Luo Shu saw that he was not very old, he should be around 20 years old, and he still had a period of time that he could. When it's time to improve your strength, you can't help but start loving money. Ahem. Puff. You are worthy of being hailed as the youngest colonel in the history of the Navy. You are so powerful. At this moment, Thor, who was lying on the stretcher, suddenly opened his eyes, coughed out a mouthful of blood, looked around, and finally settled on Luo Shu, who was closest to him, and said in an extremely weak voice. His words are not flattering Luo Shu, but more like emotions from the heart. He has lived in the first half of the Grand Line for many years. Since he mastered the two-color hegemony, there are almost no opponents who can fight him. Otherwise, he would not get the title of Deadpool. But before, when he faced the rain-like cannonballs thrown by Luo Shu, even though he had tried his best to avoid them, he still almost sank into the sea together with Root Island. This shows that he was very concerned about this. What a shock. The opponent was just throwing cannonballs. If he were to confront me head-on, I'm afraid he wouldn't be Luo Shu's enemy. This was indeed the case. With Luo Shu's current SS plus strength, it really wasn't necessary to kill Thor. With useless power, you can finish it off with just one punch wrapped around the high-level armed color hockey. You are also amazing. You are the most outstanding bounty hunter I have ever seen. Without the help of devil fruit and a powerful teacher, you have gradually gained your current strength, but you are quite talented. But you shouldn't stand against me. But I think you have not caused me any losses, so I will spare your life for now, but you can no longer do your old job, join the Navy and become my subordinate. This is the only option that is good for you. This is an animal type, ancient species, emperor crocodile fruit. If you agree, just eat it. It will not only restore your injuries in a short time, but also make your potential stronger, and your strength will also increase. Improved. Luo Shu looked at Thor, with an expression that showed no fear of death, and felt even more satisfied with him, so he said in a deep voice, and took out the ancient crocodile fruit that he had harvested before. He believed that with Thor, with his strength and talent, it is impossible to bury this top ancient devil fruit. The other party will become a powerful helper for him in the future. Thor stared at the devil fruit in Luo Shu's hand, and his body began to tremble unnaturally. Yes, he was too excited. Don't think that he has not become a person with abilities until now, and he has some reasons why he doesn't want to be able to swim in the sea. Mysophobia, or the unrealistic idea that I will develop weaknesses from now on. In fact, half a year ago, he found that his strength was slowly improving, and he was already considering becoming an Esper. However, he had never obtained a powerful devil fruit. Otherwise, with his strength, he wanted to obtain one in the first half of the Grand Line. Ordinary devil fruits are not that difficult. However, like the devil fruit in Luo Shu's hand, he could only think about it in his heart. Not to mention him, the world government, the Navy, and the 3 emperors who rule the New World would all be extremely jealous of it. Don't underestimate the allure of top ancient devil fruits. To give you the most realistic example, if someone uses this devil fruit to make a deal with Kaido, it may be to go to the Navy headquarters to rob someone, and the other party will agree. I believe that this devil fruit can exert its due power in you. Now you can tell me whether you are willing to join the Navy and become my subordinate, Luo Shu. Luo Shu casually touched the pattern on the brown fruit and continued to talk to Thor. He did not believe that the other party would not be tempted by this devil fruit. Moreover, he was not afraid that Thor would agree to him, and then to defect again. All he wants is Thor's attitude. If that happens, he will definitely let Thor know how it feels to have no place for him in the vast world. I do. Although it seems that I am doing it for this devil fruit, it is more because I think if I follow you, life will be very interesting in the future. Thor opened his mouth and took the devil fruit. The excitement on his face had disappeared. Instead, he said to Luo Shu very sincerely. After that, he stuffed all the devil fruit into his mouth, swallowing it in one breath. After all, his height is there, and his mouth is naturally much bigger than ordinary people. It is still very easy to do such a seemingly unwise thing. Oh, it's really unpalatable. Soon, Thor, who was lying on a stretcher with bruises all over his body, suddenly arched his body after eating the devil fruit. His face turned purple, and his hands involuntarily pinched his neck. He looked extremely painful until he took a few breaths. Afterwards, he felt relieved and complained. Okay, just stay here to recuperate. We still have to stay a little longer in the first half of the grand route. After discovering that Thor's teeth had become extremely sharp and a layer of horny material had grown on his skin, Luo Shu said something, turned around and left the room. This change in the other party's body was normal, as the animal-type devil fruit, depending on the person's physique, will more or less change a person's figure, body shape, and appearance after eating it. Anyone with some knowledge knows this kind of thing. It's like dying in Germany before the dark in Lake's hand as a wild boar fruit user. He has a pig-like nose and fangs at the corners of his mouth. The hair on his body is black and stands like steel needles. He is also extremely fat. These are all the changes that occurred after eating that fruit. Compared to this, Thor's condition is considered good. Of course, there are some people, such as Drake, who even eat the ancient devil fruit, but their bodies are not in the same condition. Even with the transformation, nothing has changed. In short, the devil fruit is a very magical thing. It can be given to an ordinary person and gain superhuman strength, but at the same time, it will also curse it. No one can avoid it. Sir, where is our next target? As soon as Luo Shu walked out of the cabin of the warship, Drake rushed to him and asked with a smile on his face, but in a very respectful voice. Heading to Gaia Island at full speed. Luo Shu just gave him instructions without looking back. Now he is ready to start today's practice, so he doesn't want to waste even a little time. Gaia Island, what are you doing there? Drake thought for a while in his mind, but he didn't have any clue, and Luo Shu didn't seem to explain. He didn't ask any more questions, so he could only carry out this order. I hope everyone will support it and subscribe more.